Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this session of Administrator Issues and Updates on June 17, 2025. County Administrator Gary Schmidt, would you please call the roll for us?
Thank you, Chair. Commissioners Schrader and West are in the building, but not here yet. There is a quorum present. Roll call. Commissioner Savas.
Present.
Commissioner Helm.
Here.
Chair Roberts.
Here. All right, thank you, Gary. I will now recess as the Board of County Commissioners and convene as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. Gary, what do you have for us today?
Thank you. You're now meeting as the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District Board of Directors. This is an advisory board appointment. Andrew, go ahead, please.
Directors, the District Advisory Committee, staffed by the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District, currently has 3 vacancies, 2 from term expirations and 1 due to a resignation. Recruitment was open to the public from March 31st, 2025 through May 31st, 2025. A total of 6 applications were received during this period. Of those, 3 applicants are being recommended for appointment, 2 as new members and 1 as a reappointment. The recommendation is as follows. Linda Newman to a first term ending June 2026. James Sherman to a first term ending June 2029. And Sheila Shaw to a second term ending June of 2029. The NCPRD Board of Directors could select other candidates or require further recruitment. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions, comments, and/or recommendations?
Chair, I move to appoint Linda Newman, James Sherman, and Sheila Shaw to the NCPRD DAC.
Second.
All right, it looks like Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the appointment of Linda Newman, James Sherman, and Sheila Shaw to the District Advisory Committee. Commissioner Helm has seconded that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Clerk, would you please call the poll?
Director Helm.
Aye.
Director Schrader.
Aye.
Director Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I will now adjourn as the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District Board of Directors and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners, and I will turn to Gary as for what's next.
Thank you, Chair. Next is Recovery Campus Update. Cindy Becker from County Administration will give you your monthly update and answer any questions you may have. Cindy, go ahead, please.
Good morning, everyone. Cindy Becker from County Administration. So it's that time of the month again. So I'm here to give you your monthly update on the Recovery Campus. We're just going to go straight to the second page, which talks about what we've been doing and what the next steps are. And obviously, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So in terms of the property itself, the zoning application was determined to be incomplete, and we're working on a resubmittal. Part of the challenge with the zoning application is when we first submitted it, we had really general information because we, at the time, didn't have a provider. We didn't have some of the detail we have, and it was just too general for the zoning application. So they sent it back to us, and we're putting out the details now. The other thing that's more as a challenge is because we haven't finally decided on the other half of the property. Again, we're trying to give ourselves as broad a range as possible, but we're kind of filling in the numbers. And so we're working on that. Zoning folks have been really helpful. But the other part of it is, as I've said before, this campus is a little bit of a mutant in terms of zoning land because it's got a little bit of everything, and the zoning, there's not a lot of zoning categories that accommodate that. The other thing, so we're anticipating a final zoning decisions in October of this year. In the meantime, we've been meeting weekly. I've been meeting weekly with the design team, and we're coming on July 29th to you with the schematic drawings. So you'll be able to see what the initial concepts are looking like, and so I think that's going to be pretty cool. And we're also on the 29th going to be having the conversation with you about the other half of the campus. So it'll be an hour-long policy session, and I'm really looking forward to it, but we'll really get some more things moving. Any questions on that?
Colleagues?
Okay, funding. We're still dialing for dollars, and our great lobbying staff are down at the Capitol and working to get the $20 million that we have requested. Part of the challenge right now is a decrease in the forecast, and the state is very attuned to the issues with the courts. I think you've probably read in the paper that they're being held in contempt, and there's going to be lots of fines. And so what they're looking at is using their funding for SRTFs, which are secure residential training facilities. We have one in Clackamas County as well. And so they're looking at how do they get more people out of the state hospital. That's their first priority. But we're still banging away at it and still meeting with the governor's office and legislators, and it ain't over till it's over. We're looking at two committees, the Ways and Means Committee and also the Committee on Capital Construction. So we also, we did meet with Care Oregon. 2 or 3 years ago, it would have been great to have these conversations with the coordinated care organizations because they did have money and they don't have that money anymore. So it's a challenge, and we're still going to have those conversations. We're hoping to get some funding in the next year from. We got a little bit of money from Trillium. Care Oregon is obviously the largest, HealthShare is the largest CCO in the region, and we're continuing to have these conversations, but nothing new there yet. Any questions?
It's on the funding.
Okay. Last but not least, communication outreach. We have the sounds like the GNGs, like a gang. It's a good neighbor group, and we're going on a tour of cherry blossoms tomorrow, and you'll be going on that tour in July. By the way, the governor did a tour of that facility a couple of weeks ago and was really impressed, and Devarshi, who is the CEO, talked about our project as well. So we're trying to get in as many corners and as many opportunities as possible. With that, I have nothing else on the Recovery Campus unless you have other questions.
Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, why, tell me what's the funding issue with the community of care folks exactly? Why they had money and now it's all dried up?
Well,
What's that?
all of the CCOs, all of the coordinated care
Right.
organizations across the state, a few years ago, they did have additional funding. They all had, I think, eye-opening surpluses across the state, and that money was invested to expand services, expand populations, and in some cases, the expansion kind of went a little further than they had hoped, and so the money that was there a few years ago isn't there now because there was a lot of pressure on them to invest it at that time, and so right now they're seeing the results of that, and in some cases it's been really challenging because some of the individuals that they're seeing are much more complex, the service needs are more complex, and so the money isn't going as far as it was.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Commissioner West, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you for the update. I always love hearing it. Thank you so much, Cindy. We have been working to get an additional $20-ish million from the state. We have worked hard to hobble together a little more than 50% than what's needed for this project to happen and talk about building it out in phases. I'm getting some word back that there's some language changing around like the pot of money the state may fund from, and there's some maybe misunderstanding. We're maybe working with the Senate President Wagner on trying to adjust this. Can you speak to and maybe clarify like what that is between our communication around the type of funds needed and what we're talking with the state about?
So, and we're, obviously we're talking to legislators. Again, this court issue is weighing heavy on folks, and there's also some concern about the way the state has spent the previous dollars. And so there's two potential pots of money, if you will. One is going through the capital construction budget, and there was $500 million. There's now about $350 million left, and there's $2 billion worth of requests. So, but we're pounding away at that one. The other is through the governor's office, through, I think it's Senate House Bill 2059. There was initially $90 million in that. And there's some of the legislators who are concerned about the way, as I said, the state has spent the money in the past, so they're reducing that money. We were concerned that there was going to be language in there that specified SRTFs, and that's not in there, which is good. And so the funds, I think, are going between 60 and 65 million, and everyone's looking at that. I know the state is looking at the list. About a year ago, the state sent out a survey to the counties and to the CCOs to look at what their projects were going forward, their top projects. And our project is one of the top, if not the top, for health share for the region. I think, and I also heard that another region put our project as number one, which I thought was kind of cool. Anyway, so they haven't made any decisions. One of the things that we don't know is whether or not this legislation is going to specify projects, or it's just going to say, here's an amount of money. And so one of the things that, and we're concerned about that, but we also are understanding that there's really close communications, obviously, with the governor's office and the state agency, and so there will be communications about projects. I can tell you that probably a majority of that money will go to SRTFs, but not all of it. And so the other thing that we have tried to make clear is that the campus that we're building will be able to take people in acute crisis. We'll be able to take people from the state hospital. It's serving people with not only substance use disorder, but those that have a co-occurring mental health challenge. So we're trying to make sure that we fit in whatever corner or characteristics, but right now, the only thing that looks like it's being constrained is the dollars, not the language.
And one follow-up question to that. It's my understanding that we've had great communications with the governor's office, and the governor has been supportive of this. And so Governor Kotek, thank you. Do you think, I think maybe kind of spoke to this, but with us being maybe one of the top kind of projects, the fact that we're ready, can you speak to the readiness of where we're at compared to other proposals?
That's one of the things that we also talked to the governor's office about, is that we are beyond shovel ready. I mean, we were in there, and so they're very well aware of that.
Okay.
I don't know to what extent other projects are, but they're clear that we are.
Okay, terrific, and it's a super exciting update, and yeah, it's been an honor to be working with you on this. Thank you.
So we have another week of session left, a little over. 29th, I think, is when
Yeah.
session is over. So keep pushing, everybody.
Right. Well, thank you. If there's no other questions or comments, and this is information and update only, we'll move on. So Gary, what is next for us?
Next is County Financial Assistance Agreement, Behavioral Health Update. This is a hot topic right now with the Association of Oregon Counties and the Oregon Health Authority. We want to give you a quick verbal briefing for all of you, and then if you need more information, we can talk with you individually. Mary Rumbaugh, Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services. Go ahead, please, Mary.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Glad to be here and hopefully clear up maybe a little bit of confusion and give as much facts that I am aware of. So just to give really quick background, the Oregon Health Authority, along with the Association of Oregon Community Mental Health Programs, AOCMHP, which is the state association that I'm currently the president of, as well as several what we call sort of CMHP or behavioral health directors, we've actually been meeting with Oregon Health Authority since March of 2024 with a very planned approach to very much redo the current County Financial Assistance Agreement, as it's called, which is very outdated, very inflexible around how the funding lines are distributed, limiting you on the population that you can serve. So that's been twice a month meetings, 90 minutes to 2 hours, very productive for the most part. Interestingly, last November, Oregon Health Authority approached us during an AOCMHP meeting. At that time said, we don't believe that we are going to be able to land a contract that we all feel good about by 7/1/25. We would like to already proactively request a 6-month extension. And we actually engaged AOC at that time and said, Absolutely not. We are all committed to getting a new contract by 7/1, so we're on the biennium. So ultimately, AOC engaged the governor at that time, and the governor directed OHA to get us a contract by 7/1. So through all of the monthly meetings, what I have always said is we're not going to have a perfect contract because we did not allow for the 6-month extension. And so we know that we're going to have to keep coming back to the table. So the two areas that have the biggest pain points in the contract are a very simple language, subject to availability of funds, which really means that we can't be asking community mental health programs, in this case the Behavioral Health Division, to provide services in which there is not adequate funding. That language is actually in statute, and it has been always in the contract, although they've tried to remove it in the past. So they've removed it from the boilerplate, although it is in the scope in Exhibit B, indicating that once you spend your dollars on the priority populations in the contract, that's the other issue I'll talk about in a second, then subject to availability of funds, here's the rest of the services you could fund. So the other sort of tension is around the priority population. So Cindy just mentioned this previously. There is a lot of tension with the state right now. They already obviously had the lawsuit against them around the aid and assist population, individuals not getting to the Oregon State Hospital, so they're sitting languishing in jail, which is not where we want people to be. So as part of the contract, OHA are prioritizing funding to go to civil commitment, aid and assist, and mobile crisis response, which could include stabilization centers if you have one or plan to develop one, which we do. And then beyond that, sort of whatever funding is left over. But the caveat to that language is that unlike previously, in more recent contracts, we are now required to do a behavioral health local plan. That local plan is going to need to engage community partners. It will need to engage advisory boards, our local public safety committee, and that ultimately that local plan will then be presented to OHA and ultimately will identify, based on our needs, where we are advocating for the money to be spent. And so if you're a small county who has nobody at the Oregon State Hospital under aid and assist, you're not going to be prioritizing your funds for that, but you might be prioritizing it for mobile crisis because you have to drive 2 hours to identify the crisis or support the crisis, for example. So the language, unfortunately, it does come across in contract as if you are totally limited, but having been at these tables for hours upon hours, the plan really is that the local plan will drive how we prioritize the money. But if all of a sudden you said, we're not going to prioritize aid and assist, but we have, which we don't, but you have 40 folks at the Oregon State Hospital, Oregon Health Authority is not going to approve your local plan, right? That's not acceptable. So those are the two tension points. I think it's important those are the two tension points. I think what is being requested of boards across the state right now is to not sign the agreement. And I think that there's some nuance to that conversation. In my mind, we have a contract that expires 6/30. I don't yet have a contract ready to go in front of this board. So there's really nothing for you to sign or not sign at this point. My concern and the direction I would need from this board is, what does it mean to pause on signing or not signing a contract when 7/1 hits? So we're not going to already have a contract. Now, sometimes a slight delay because, it's working through review. To me, that's fine. That happens. But right now, not signing a contract on 7/1 gives us two choices. Behavioral Health Division will continue to provide the services without a contract and without revenue. Or we stop services. No one yet has proposed a middle ground. And in my mind, we are not that far away from getting to language that we can live with further negotiation It's not enough. I feel like we're close enough that I'm very uncomfortable recommending the position that we don't sign the contract once it's ready to come forward. DOJ has committed to re-looking at the language. We're expecting that this week. That's why we're holding county council review right now of the, quote, final contract we've received, with a hope that maybe some of the language will be balanced. But my biggest concern, truly, honestly, is I don't think if counties want to position themselves to not sign the contract because they want to get the attention of the governor, OHA, Department of Justice, the only way to get their attention is to stop providing services. And I do not believe that is in the right, that's in the best interest of our community and, frankly, the staff who are providing these services.
Okay, Commissioner West, go ahead.
Thank
sir.
you, Mary, and I very much value your counsel and expertise in this, and so thank you for that briefing. I know right now we have about 22, 24 counties that are in lockstep to not engage and sign. Washington County has come out as one of them, one of the big counties, to say this is a threat against local autonomy in the work that we do well, and frankly, that the state has struggled with. And I guess one of my questions is, does this language being removed benefit the state in a way that they can, in a top-down sort of way, can they mandate that we do what they want in a way that challenges our local autonomy in this work that, frankly, we do much better?
Yeah, I do appreciate the removal of the subject to availability of funds. I do think that's a worthwhile principle to continue to push on. They do include language, which I actually don't want to lose, which is, in no event will the county be required to use funds other than the financial assistance to fund the services. Well, here's the reality. Let me just give you some quick numbers here. So Behavioral Health Division coming into this next fiscal year has about $40 million in revenue. 10.4 of that is going to be coming from, really closer to 11 million, is going to be coming from the county financial assistance agreement. So it's not even their total portion, right? And of that, 5.5 million is budgeted to go to what we call their safety net line of business. That includes aid and assist, mobile crisis, civil commitment. And yet, that budget alone for that line of business is over $11 million. So the fact is if we truly were just to do the local plan and just do the budget, the funding that we're receiving, we literally wouldn't be able to do what we do today because we have to braid funding, which we do with, like, through coordinated care organizations investments. So the reality is there's already not enough money in the budget to cover the services that as a safety net provider, we already do. That hasn't changed. That's not new. The subject to availability of funds gives us the sort of leverage to say, wait a second, now you're asking us to do more. That's now an unfunded mandate, and I agree with this board's position, because it would be my position, is we can no longer do those things that are unfunded.
But then they could say, do them or we're not approving your local plan, which counties unfortunately have been in this position all too often. And now you have not just a few standouts, you have over 2/3 of the state's counties very concerned. Now we're playing a game of chicken with people's lives. You are correct. And that is where we are finding ourselves. And we don't want to be in, like, I'm not happy about this. But at the end of the day, so we can continue to do what we do well, and we do it real well in Clackamas County, I would put us up against anybody, is the state has to make sure it's being a good partner and understanding that we can't do things that we don't have the funding for with our limited local budget. We just went through budget cycle and saw this happen, right? And there's things we'd love to be able to do, but we frankly just don't have the money, and we've had to do a lot with a little. And many of these counties don't even have our resources, and there's not a lot of trust between the state and the counties on these unfunded mandates, and then now we have our local plans in jeopardy, and held over, kind of being held hostage as local governments, if we don't adhere to what Salem is dictating. I don't know, I mean, I want to be consistent in protecting county autonomy and the unfunded against unfunded mandates. I don't have a lot of trust with the track record of the state in stepping up adequately to support local communities in dealing with these crises that we are facing. These are not new crises that and there's been multiple legislative sessions where they continue to not prioritize and fund in the way that local governments have asked them to fund, including deflection programs and other things. So there is a lack of trust across, and this is across the political spectrum too. This is now you have the counties really bristling against the governor. Where do you see these negotiatings going, and when is the drop dead? Is the drop dead July 1st, or is there like, okay, we're a week out, we finally got there, and let's hustle to make this so we don't see a lack of services? Tell me a little bit about timeline too and realities.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always a chance that we'll see, contract language from DOJ hopefully this week, that you're like, okay, this is a lot closer. Again, still not perfect, and that those boards or county councils with those other counties would say, okay, with agreement that we need to keep coming back to the conversation. So even the monthly meetings that I was talking about, they're still on my calendar through the end of this year, because we knew that we weren't going to land on a perfect product, and that we were going to have to keep coming back, and likely there would be amendments to the contract. So, the term drop dead date, I mean, it's frankly, we are not going to have, even if we got everything we wanted, this week, it's not going to be in front of you all by 7/1, but that's okay, because again, we've had those situations where the state is later getting us contracts, and we know good due diligence, we're going to continue to, provide the services.
Pending.
Right, that's correct. So I think, again, my question back to this board is, what does it mean to take the position? And it's your position to take, it's not mine. What does it mean to say we are not going to sign?
Yeah, Mary, we also it's my understanding there was, when I was away on naval orders and I wasn't here for this meeting, that there was a meeting with the governor with a number of the counties. And that some of the staff that's been intervening and working on negotiating this are just they're mid-level. They're wonderful people, I'm sure, but they're mid-level, right? Like even the highest levels of the governor's office have not been engaging with the counties in a way that seems very meaningful. And that gives counties, it shows a lack of respect to the counties and local government when we're not even dealing with the real decision makers to help address this issue. And so there seems to be maybe a little bit of urgency and respect back to the counties, like governor needs to be you or your director level, and we're not dealing with the director level, we're dealing kind of a mid-level bureaucrat. And so for me, that shows maybe we have a little ways to go, and the counties are taking this quite seriously and feel threatened by it. So there's some bridges that have to be built. Are you seeing a change in the governor's office and how they're approaching the counties? Because their office came out quite really upset and angry in a way that maybe was adding to the divide.
I've not seen or heard of any communication following the most recent communication that Commissioner Schrader was part of with the governors.
Do you know when the next? We don't know. Okay.
We don't know. We don't. We would have normally had a sort of CFAA contracts meeting next week when we're in Burns, but because we're in the AOCMH, we're doing a retreat, we canceled that meeting, which is probably fine because, again, to your point, the decision makers are not those in the room.
And I will say there's a strong effort by the 20-plus other counties and AOC for the counties to absolutely hold firm on this. It's a tough decision where we're going. I know it's also a political one. But thank you for your briefing.
Yeah.
Thank you. Commissioner Schrader?
Yeah, Mary, thank you, because I know this has got to be really stressful for you. And I know where your heart lies in the work that we do for these people who need the help. And yeah, I was at the governor's meeting. It did get very tense. Essentially, Ben described it accurately, and I was there to hear it, as the governor was quite testy. And it really gave the impression that we were told the priority was going to be aid and assist. Pretty directly, at least that was my impression being there, and that's part of the concern, because it's not just this notion of the money, but the notion that there are other things that we do in our local plans that are tailored to our community, And because they're not taking anyone at the state hospital at this point, that we are going to probably be bearing the brunt of that. And so it's taking that language out is still a big sticking point, and the impression that our local autonomy is going to be threatened. And I found out about this because I was at the AOC retreat and then knew that we had to get further briefing on this, because I was certainly unaware that this was happening. So thank you for coming and giving us some insight. It does put us in a bad position as a county. I'm not sure where we should go with this. I agree with Ben. It feels really like a game of chicken with the state at this point. And it is true that they have an interim executive director. Am I correct with that? OHA right now. I don't think, yeah.
The OHA director's out on leave, so there is I think
Yeah.
it's an interim deputy
Yeah.
covering.
And
Yeah.
so there's that issue, because again, the sense was we're not talking to the actual directors. We are not being respected on the same level as people who are, working as counties to go ahead. And so that's the political landscape that we're dealing with. And I hope we can get through it. You've given me some hope, and that the negotiations are still happening. But I am very worried. I mean, they were so upset that you could certainly see this potential happening, and it's going to put us in a bad spot.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly respond to that, over the last several years, each county has actually received an infusion of dollars specific to aid and assist. So this county went from one aid and assist coordinator, because we had very few people in aid and assist, to now a team of 5. That is fully funded by the CFA. We do not braid any funding. So even with the priority populations, we're already doing it without even putting it in the local plan. And we are not Multnomah, we are not Washington County. We have 21 people right now at the Oregon State Hospital compared to 92 at Multnomah. And we haven't had civil commitment. We haven't had folks under civil commitment going to state hospital for years. This is not new. So I struggle a little bit with, trying to articulate that the concerns are already the concerns of yesterday. These are the same concerns we're dealing with every single time, where we're having to make hard decisions with a limited amount of resources. If all of a sudden you have an influx of, aid and assist, you're going to have to make some hard choices with your budget, right? The local plan is the first opportunity for actually this county to relook at where we've spent the last 2 decades investing in behavioral health, and maybe we do need to shift. That's okay, as long as Oregon Health Authority will approve that. So I really don't see a conflict with their prioritization, as long as we still have flexibility within the local plan. And I believe the program folks that we're dealing with at Oregon Health Plan, who will be ultimately approving it, I believe their intentions are good to still allow the local plan to drive our priorities. And I get to say that because I've been at the meetings and I've been at the table the whole time. And the folks who are upset have not been at those same conversations.
That's good information. That's good information to know. And I really appreciate your insight with this. I don't get a sense of how this is going to play out, actually, at this point. I'm hopeful that they'll come to some kind of a conclusion. But I will tell you, it was not a pleasant conversation, and the governor was not particularly happy with many of us. But thank you, Mary. I'm sorry this is hard on you. Anyway.
It's okay.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Savas?
Yeah, I know we have a lot of ground to cover, and we all have some commitments a little bit later, too. But, Mary, thank you for the time yesterday explaining this to me, and again today, just refreshing my memory from what I learned yesterday. I would suggest that we maybe craft a letter to the governor's office, whoever, OHA, however you think. But I think we got to craft a letter saying we're inclined to join the counties only to try to get past this impasse, if you will, and that here's our position. We're reluctant to join, but this has gone on for, 14 months or 15 months, and not very much progress, and ask that they expedite or put together a summit of folks to get this resolved. It seems to me that enough smart people around the room with their heads in the right place could get this pretty well underway and have a tentative agreement. I realize it takes a long time to put an agreement together, but have a tentative agreement so we can operate, July 1 forward. But, absent that, I don't think us, pounding our hands on the table or other counties, I think we got to suggest a path forward and I don't say be a leader, but be a leader.
Yep.
In trying to get this resolved and ask, again, keep our relationship with the governor's office and the OHA good, and say we want to be part of the solution, and let's work it out.
Okay.
So can we just support her drafting a letter to those points and maybe see if we can't get someone at AOC to perhaps join us in that kind of an effort?
Well, I think what we'd have to do is talk to Gina and those counties and maybe attempt to be the peacemakers in the process. And maybe, I know, Mary, you've already been involved, but maybe helping in that sense so we're not kind of going to DEFCON 5 so quickly, which is kind of where we seem to be headed. And who's going to suffer? The people that need the services, one way or the other. The biggest point is that one line of subject to funding because of the sensitivity. And this is not just in our state. This is a national issue that NACO is constantly pushing back against. So this, you're right, this is not anything new. Why don't we, if we could do something of that sort, and I'd be glad to call Gina, perhaps you and I could give her a ring and maybe see if we can help move it along a little more, Yeah.
Okay, Commissioner West.
Thank you, Chair. Before I comment on that really quick, I had a question. You spoke to the CFAA funding the 5 positions to help us with aid and assist. We have 21 individuals at the state hospital right now, less than our other large county counterparts. We're thankful for that. Earlier, just clarification, earlier in your briefing, you talked about with your financial numbers that you highlighted that the state doesn't provide us enough money to necessarily do the work, that we do have to do our creative braided funding and get really creative with the outcomes currently with what we're doing with what I believe the state should be fully funding.
Correct.
Can you speak to maybe how are those two things different? And is that not true that we're supposed to trust the state subject to, because it's in the state's benefit to remove subject to funding. It's in their benefit to pass the buck on to counties and us carry a burden we are not capable of carrying. And we're already braiding funding for them. They are funding maybe the 5 individuals through the CFAA, which, thank you. That's what needs to happen. I don't know if you can maybe speak to that reality. I don't want to be conflating things I shouldn't be conflating, or if you could chime in.
Well, I think it's important to note that subject to availability of funds is in statute, and I think there's been some attorney discussion about does statute sort of proceed, or take place over what is in contract. I don't know that we have full agreement on that.
Okay.
The braiding of the funding is really more specific to the coordinated care organizations, their requirement under their contract to invest in community crisis response services. So again, we have an ability to really be articulate to say for aid and assist, for civil commitment, that really is our responsibility as the community mental health program and as you all as the local mental health authority, that nobody else is responsible for that population. We are. So that we absolutely should be fully funded for that. Crisis response is also a responsibility of Medicaid. And so that's really where the braiding goes. So we're going to be able to tell a story to say, using that priority population, to be able to say, this is how far the county financial assistance agreement will get us. And then this is everything else that won't be funded, except it is going to be funded because of investments through some counties, county general fund, or, CCOs. So I do think it actually tells an important story. I will also remind you in the last session that cost studies were, that was approved. That now there has to be regular cost studies to show the discrepancy between what it actually costs us to do the services and the funding we're getting. And we've been able to show already across the state, and I don't know whether this is going to end up, getting passed this year, but that there's a 60 million biennial deficit between what it costs us to provide crisis services across the state and what we're funded for, if we just look at the county financial assistance agreement. So we have some pathways to highlight the deficits.
Okay. I would say I want to be pragmatic, and I want us to find a way to yes and be
Yeah.
peacemakers in this situation. We're a big county. We have a lot of credibility across the state. We do incredibly good work. And some of the polling data coming out right now about our voter trust is superior to the rest of the region right now.
62%.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later, the 62% mark that we just got. And Mary, that's a lot to your work and the policy priorities of this board. However, we also have the duty as the elected representatives of this county to make sure that we're not getting stuck with a burden that we can't fulfill, or that will actually also end up hurting people because we're over-promising, under-delivering, and we're burdened, right? And we need to just keep our local autonomy and do the work we know how to do best, and actually also hold the state accountable to understand the work we do at the local level. And so I don't know what that balance is. I don't like morally playing chicken with people's lives in this way. We're not talking about a road or transportation. We're talking about human beings. And so playing chicken with human beings is kind of a moral problem, if we are honest about it. But how do we find that way to balance the needs of the local government, who is outperforming the state in many capacities? How do we balance that need with also getting to yes and being perceived as a peacemaker in this sense, while respecting our county counterparts? I think Commissioner Salva spoke to this. And I don't want to play just to get along, right? I want to find that right, strike that right through the eye of that needle. How do we get there? And maybe we need to use up all the time we can, but I think we have to work aggressively to try to get there. Maybe it's a letter, Commissioner Savas. I think maybe we should look at a draft. Or I don't know who is on the letter. I don't know if it's AOC. I don't know if it's the two big counties. We work with Washington County because I'm sure they're feeling the same angst we're talking about here on the dais today. I can just see Commissioner Fye and Pam Treese and Pam and Harrington. I can just feel they're having the same conversation. So how do we get there, and maybe continue to build that trust with the governor's office, and maybe we can have a different tone moving forward and quickly. But I'm open to your suggestion, Commissioner Savas.
If I might just interject, I think, Commissioner Schrader brought up I thought was a great idea, touching base with AOC and Gina,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
perhaps
that's what I
touching
see.
base with Washington County, having the conversation and kind of coming back. As I hear from Mary, she's going to potentially contract language is coming back this week. And I, just like Commissioner Savas, I want to grab you to get a more detailed briefing on this myself. I know Paul beat me to the punch there, so kudos to him. But I really want to also get up to speed on this because it is obviously very critical. So I guess I turn to my colleagues. Does that sound reasonable to kind of have that as the first step, or?
I think we need to include, the three big counties I think that are out of the 24 are Washington, they're asking us, and Marion County is also. Those are the three. Multnomah County's been oddly silent for a number of reasons, but whatever. So, but I think that Marion, Washington, and Clackamas County are probably the bigger pieces of this, and the smaller counties have a different concern, but for kind of in the same realm. So I think we should also engage Marion County.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think
All
we
right,
should do-
Commissioner
let's do that.
Savas had a comment.
Well, Chair, I think we can do all three. Number one, you can get your briefing. We can direct staff to draft a letter, and you can also reach out to AOC. I think you do all those at the same time.
Yeah.
And then we have something. If we choose not to do the letter, we choose not to do it. So I move that we direct staff to draft a letter for review by the board on this matter, and that's my motion.
Can I amend it?
Sure.
I'll second, right? And now, can I amend
Friendly
it?
amendment, yeah.
I also want specific outreach to Marion, Washington County
Okay.
as partners, as larger counties that are impacted directly by this.
Could you add Yam Hill?
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, sure.
And could you add AOC?
AOC is already on in the
And
original
It's in the
motion.
original motion,
Yeah.
okay. Repeat the motion. No, you don't have to do that.
Right.
Do you, Commissioner Savas, do you agree to that amendment?
I agree to the amendment. The letter would be directed to or addressed to our state partners. And if someone wants to join, other counties could possibly join with our letter as well. So, but let's just lead into a constructive solution and not anger anyone else in the works.
All right. So Commissioner Savas, your motion is to draft a letter to our state partners to put together a work group for solutions. Is that what I kind of heard you say earlier?
No, I'll restate the motion. I moved direct staff to draft a letter to our state partners outlining a request to resolve this and bring together a coalition of, or a summit, whatever, you pick the words, and bring that draft back to the board for review.
And I second it, and then my amendment is to specifically collaborate with Washington, Yamhill, and Marion County as leaders to find a solution in this effort. It's a little bit more targeted than an entire 24
Yeah,
county.
that wouldn't be incorporated in the letter. I'm okay with that amendment, and that's an action we can do with or without the motion, so I'm okay with it.
Okay.
All right. And did I hear a second?
I seconded him.
Yep.
All right, I'll get as close as I can to that, Paul. So Commissioner Savas has moved to direct staff to outline a letter to request regarding this matter, and that you will also bring together a summit for review, is how
Yeah,
and to include the counties of Marion, Washington, and Yamhill County.
Yeah, I think, maybe clerk, what do you have?
I think you're getting stuck on the weeds. We know what you want.
Yeah.
We'll
Okay.
draft a letter and bring it back to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Clerk, why don't you call the poll on this?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Aye.
motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you all, and thank you, Gary, for getting us through that as well. So if there's no other questions, this again was information for us update, and so Gary, what's next?
All right, so just logistics. You meet tomorrow, and then you don't meet again until Thursday, June 26th. So I guess, Mary, as much we can do by tomorrow for them to review a letter.
Sure.
Otherwise, you'll be out for a week because of your retreat.
Okay.
So we'll try and expedite this by tomorrow
Yes.
and bring it back to you.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very
I-
much.
I think less is going to be more.
Yes.
on
yeah,
this one.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, you have a hard stop in 8 minutes for a land use hearing that must start at 11 a.m. I'll go to the next issues item, but we'll have to continue issues either after your land use hearing or this afternoon.
I think it's going to have to be this.
But let's move forward. Next, lottery dollars, arts grant funding requests. Sarah Ekman, Deputy Director of Transportation and Development, and Laura Edmonds, Economic Development Manager, will present. Best you can, as quickly as you can, please.
Good morning. We are here today to talk to you about some use of lottery dollars for arts funding, and Laura's going to walk you through the details.
Good morning, Chair, Commissioners. Pleasure to be before you again. All right, so this is potential funding for non-competitive grants for the fiscal year 25-26. Each year, we come before you to provide you with a list of funding requests for the non-competitive grants and traditionally awarded to the arts, cultural, and educational nonprofit organizations. As in the past, it's been Clackamas County Arts Alliance. I'm going to, forgive me, I'm blowing through this. They have requested this year $125,000. Clackamas County Historical Society, which is the Museum of Oregon Territory, MOOT, they've requested $125,000. The Clackamas County Cultural Coalition at this point in time is not on this recommendation because they are literally just completing their grant process, so we don't have any results for them yet, nor are we ready to ask for additional funding because that was a pilot project last year. So in this case, these are all coming from state lottery dollars, no general funds are to be used. And we are recommending, the staff is recommending the similar funding from last year for $110,000 to the Clackamas County Arts Alliance and $100,000 to the Clackamas County Historical Society. In your attachment A, you'll see your traditional spreadsheet that we provide for these types of lottery funding, and what is highlighted are only those grants that we are discussing right now. Any questions?
All right, questions. I see Commissioner West has a question.
Okay, maybe this is a generational thing. I don't know, but Moot is asking for an increase of $25,000. I would like to know how many people actually go to that museum on an annual basis, and then what's the cost per individual that actually goes there for that reason. I see this as very underutilized and very expensive for what it is. And I have a hard time getting there, even at $100,000, let alone an increase to them. I don't know how they produce revenue on their own. I don't know the viability of that institution any longer. I don't think it's heavily utilized, and so I just have some concerns. I think that we do have some incredible cultural opportunities to help and to give this funding to that serves way more Clackamas County residents than Moot does. So that's kind of my concern. I don't even know when they're open, like how often they're even open to the public. Like I think it's just really an underutilized opportunity, and I don't know how to improve that, but I also don't know if this is the best use of funds any longer.
Comment. I might had one point to kind of follow up with Commissioner West a little bit. As I read into that ORS 461.540, it's to support activities that further economic development. And one of the discussion items I had with Commissioner, I'm calling Gary Commissioner now, County Administrator Schmidt, he had also mentioned that it could also be used for the same grant opportunity to support businesses as far as another economic development. And so I really agree what is the best use of that? I do not know a lot about it. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's just having kind of that for discussion. I know Commissioner Savas has his light on, so.
Can I pick
Yes.
your statement super quick?
Yes.
Like, the Lakewood Theater took a giant hit in funding because of RAC is no longer there, and they service thousands and thousands of people in the county and are wildly utilized in a way that's culturally relevant and has economic development in a way that Moot will never get close to. Like, it's never. And so there are opportunities for us to bolster nonprofit, culturally specific assets that truly are economic drivers for the region and viability. I bet you millions and millions of dollars in overall business revenue benefit because of the success of the Lakewood Theater. They did have a massive hit to their budget because of the RAC issue and it kind of imploding. So there are examples like that where this money would be multiplied and go way further, I believe.
All right, thank you. I think Commissioner Savas was on next.
Yeah, well, it may be slightly generational, but it's also, I think, frankly, I won't say apples and oranges, but something along that lines. I think that your comparison, Commissioner West, is, I think they're just two different type of organizations altogether, and the funding streams that they rely upon are also different and unique. So, I know what the ask are. It's clear in the packet what the ask are. It's also clear what the recommendation is. There are other monies that get redistributed at other times for the chambers. I'm just mindful that that venue, I was there about a month ago. Place was full. It was an event, but the place was full. And it was totally related to museum assets, not the venue itself for hosting a meeting. But that's also a big venue, and also the location, knowing what's happening with the Grand Ronde, the Wyoming Falls property, knowing all the potential out there. I think it's important that that asset be viable and available. So I see this as just part of the fabric of our county, frankly, and it's a location, so it's, to me, hopefully it's not one or the other, but, you know, again, based on the request, I'm inclined to support the staff recommendation and encourage you to you and I to go over there at one of those events and enjoy that particular event, to see more about it.
We've been there a number of times, but generally it's space, event space above is what draws people in. It has nothing to do with the museum. It's
Yep.
basically an event space.
I know. My last time I was there was not an event. I mean, it was not an event space. It was actually a museum function, and it was full.
Okay.
I wanted to give Commissioner Schrader had her
Yeah,
light
I
on.
just am looking at two of these, and so I'm very familiar with Moot. The Clackamas County Arts Alliance and the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition. What is the significant difference between those two organizations?
Okay,
That's
so.
kind of what I'm like, well, one just does arts and the other one does,
So the art, if I might.
Yeah.
So the Clackamas County Arts Alliance is actually the fiduciary, the fiscal agent for the Cultural Coalition. So last year, if you recall, Cultural Coalition, you guys approved a one-time $100,000 funding for a pilot grant program because they support the artists, but the Arts Alliance is actually the organization that also supports artists. They provide the website design, the fiscal agent responsibilities for the Cultural Coalition, but they also schedule and host all kinds of art exhibits and events for artists to be able to showcase their artistry. They're the organization that hangs the art in all of our buildings, okay, to display artists. And they also, though, provide educational and professional development for artists who are looking to apply for grants independently. So they actually are a large service provider for artists in Clackamas County. They do a lot of the work that artists don't know how to do for themselves, let's put it that way.
so the one is the fiduciary and needs, wanted 125 for that, and then the other one just does the work. Oh,
It's on, she just needs to talk in it.
just does the work. I'm trying to,
That's their ask is 125. We're only recommending 110,000, the
Right,
same as they got
right.
last year. So.
But I'm trying to understand why we're giving, if one's the fiduciary, so are we giving them $200,000? Or are we?
No.
No.
No, you're not.
I'm being thick-headed here, I'm sorry.
The
but-
100,000 that you gave to the Cultural Coalition yesterday, a small stipend was retained by the Arts Alliance as the administrator to be able to administer the grants because they have the website and the applications and everything that they build for the coalition. So they provide all of the services to the coalition because they are a volunteer board only. So the Arts Alliance is the staffed organization that provides all the services for that organization, including their own web design. So they get paid a small stipend.
Okay, I'm just
Yep.
wondering if there's duplication, but evidently not. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Any suggestions, motion, where we at? Commissioner West, go
So,
ahead.
only because, like, I'm not convinced it's the best use of these dollars, I'm not going to support the proposal, which is wonderful, by the way. I do think there are ways to multiply the effectiveness and economic development beyond Moot. I think that that's objectively true. Not that they're not part of our community and have been around for a long time. I just don't think they're nearly as effective with what these dollars were intended to do. And I think Chair Roberts spoke to the statute on what that was used. I think something like Lakewood Theater, or that really draws that economic vibrancy in a community and also supports the arts, is much more important at this time and should be a priority. So for me, at this time, because of the Moot ask, I'm not there yet. Not that I can't get there. Maybe I have something to learn about it, but I'm not there with supporting the Moot ask. So that's why I'll be a no today.
And I guess one other question, have we ever had conversations with these folks as nonprofits of what their opportunities are for the fundraising they need to sustain themselves? Are they solely dependent on the county tourism dollars, or are they?
They are not.
Okay.
They both do their own independent fundraising. They get some funding from the state. They do independent. They have philanthropic donors that
Okay.
support them as well. So most art organizations have funding from numerous areas that are coming to them. So this is just part of it because they are the two, so the Moot is is a museum. They provide educational programs for K through 12. They have about 1,000 students so probably up to 1,000 students that come through some of their programs because they are delivering historical programs to our children. So they are learning history. They're partnering with a couple other local museums. It's stated in the packet, sorry, but they are an educator to some effect and not just, so it is a museum. But the Arts Alliance is the organization based in Clackamas County that specifically supports Clackamas County artists, right? So if you're looking at RAC for Portland, Arts Alliance is our organization.
Yeah, our local one now.
Yep.
If there is a desire from the board for more information from Moot too, we can facilitate some additional data gathering on the types of things that you're looking for and bring that back.
I think that's what we really need to do. I'm okay moving forward now, but I think that I want to make a commitment to get more involved in those local organizations so I get a clearer idea of, what our return on investment is. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a motion?
I move to approve the staff recommendation of $110,000, pardon?
It's in your script, Commissioners.
$110,000 to the Clackamas County Arts Alliance and $100,000 to the Clackamas County Historical Society.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Savas has moved to approve the funding in the amount of $110,000 for the Clackamas County Arts Alliance, $100,000 for Clackamas County Historical Society. Commissioner Helm has seconded that. Any further discussion?
Just point of order, so Paul, you're not including the Clackamas County Cultural Coalition? I'm sorry. I didn't.
That's not part of the staff
Part of
request.
the staff request.
All right, got it. Okay. Yeah, I'm just not tracking today well, am I? Okay.
Turn my lights on.
And Commissioner West, I'm sorry.
I'm going to vote no. Like I said, we have right in the same area the Youth Music Project, which also has the Oregon Music Hall of Fame. That is quite robust in its outreach. That also lost significant funding due to the RAC and going defunct. And both these organizations I mentioned, I think, service way more people in a way that's more impactful to the community that also fits within this need. I'm trying to find the best use of these dollars for the community. I just don't see the evidence there. Not that they're not amazing, and maybe I have more to learn, like I said, but I will be voting no.
All right. And hearing no other discussion, clerk, would you please call a poll?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
No.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Gary, what's next?
All right, we're going to pause on the issues list, and we'll come back to it. Next, you have your land use hearing, and so we'll do a quick shuffle of staff here, and then just a quick 30 seconds, please, and then you move to that.
Gary, I'm noticing that the hot link on that bike ped plan is not bringing up the bike ped plan.
Okay?
That's correct, Commissioner Savas. There's no new materials from last time, so staff had no materials to post for this today.
But it should link, though, to the prior materials, right? All right. We made a mistake. We'll have to fix it, but it's not going to happen right now. Do you need us to pause to get you materials?
Well, if there's a extended dialogue, then yes. If there's not, and it's simple, then I recall what we need to do, or what I think I want to do, but
Okay.
that's one of us.
We'll get quick printed copies of the staff report. We'll take care of that ASAP. Thank you.
All right, are you ready, Gary, then to proceed? All right. At this point, I'll call to order this June 17, 2025 Clackamas County Board of Commissioners Land Use Hearing. So clerk, for the record, let's do the poll again.
Of course, Chair. Commissioner West,
Here.
Commissioner Schrader,
Here.
Commissioner Helm,
Here.
Commissioner Savas,
Present.
Mr. Chair.
Here.
A quorum is present, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. And would you please introduce the item for consideration today?
Before the board today is file number ZDO-292, which amends Appendix A of the comprehensive plan to include the Walk Bike Clackamas Plan, and which updates the active transportation policies of Comprehensive Plan Chapter 5, the Transportation System Plan. On May 13th, 2025, the board held a public hearing on this item and voted to continue the matter for deliberation and decision only. On June 3rd, 2025, the board voted once again to continue the matter for deliberation and decision only. That concludes my summary of this item, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So staff is here today to answer any other questions or help the board remember any details as needed. So colleagues, any questions? All right, look around. See none, so is there a motion?
Chair, I move that we approve the bike ped plan as presented by staff that reflects the committee's work. Sorry if that's not verbatim.
There's no language for us.
Committee's
Okay.
work.
I'm looking for the language
All right.
also, so we're looking for a motion, but I don't see the technical language.
The CDO.
Do we need to wait for technical language?
Do you want me to make the motion? You want to,
Where,
isn't it this one?
oh, there it is, right there.
What page are you on?
So I found
gotta
it. So
number these.
I withdraw my motion, I'll restate it. I move we approve file number ZDO 292, the Walk Bike Clackamas Plan as recommended by staff.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. So Commissioner Savas has moved to approve file number ZDO 292, the Walk Bike Clackamas Plan, as recommended by staff. It's been seconded by Commissioner Schrader. Any further discussion?
Yes, Chair, I just want to just state, I know that there's been a lot of interest, and since our two hearings that have been, or motions to move this have been unsuccessful, it has generated a lot of concern by a number of people around the community wanting to see their particular project or their particular aspect of this plan moved or advanced higher. And so it's competing interests, but I want to respect the work of the staff and the citizens who are on this committee to follow the recommendation. I think that's really important to give, number one, value and to honor the process, the criteria, everything that led to Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, and those priorities. Also want to recognize that there's a lot of, and I'm in that neighborhood, and I know that there's actually one person in this room who's in my neighborhood as well. Would like to see those plans advanced in our areas. But I think that work in the future to advance those must happen, and I'm looking forward to the next time this plan comes up for recommendation. But that's just my comments. There's a lot of interest where all around the county, not all over, but a lot of the county, people want to advance their projects. And there's not enough resources. This is just a plan. But I just want to make that statement.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Savas. Commissioner West?
So I won't ask to amend your motion because you will deny it. But I'm going to vote no today because I do believe it's practical and the right thing to do to advance the priority change project N303 from Tier 3 to Tier 2. We're already doing a large investment there that has multi-jurisdictional investment. And once we're already in there doing that work and the funding is available, it makes sense to prioritize the adjacent work that needs to be done. It's also a wildly unsafe area. Not the only one in the county. We can all make a case for different projects. It seems practical and pragmatic to take the recommendation to advance that, not because it's in a specific area, because it just practically makes sense at this time. So if your motion fails, I will make a motion to also to add the change in prioritization to that specific project today. But I just wanted to make, as it stands today, because of my desire to be practical and advance that, I'll vote no against your motion.
Yeah, I understand that, and maybe I'll just be a little bit more clear. I mean, I think there are some, people have made some relevant points, very similar to yours. There's construction underway, it's really nearby, this would be the time to do it, so for those very reasons. But there again, I'm restraining from that, because it would just mess this all up. So I'm going to stay with the motion, and we'll see what happens.
To be clear, I'm trying to understand which one you're referring to.
I will, if this motion fails, I will turn around and make a motion for that first option that would do exactly what Commissioner Savas says, and it would change the priority project from a 3 to a 2. Because of, and that specific population, there's a lot of density around there. Wilsonville has the largest makeup of multi-family type housing and apartment housing in comparison to single-family residents. We actually have more of that type of housing than we do single-family residences. So it is a very diverse economic part of the county, and many of those people are going to require that multimodal safe access in a way that, and because of its density, that just doesn't exist there now on those county roads, plus the current multi-jurisdictional investment. It just makes sense to me to, and I think I agree with the committee, to change that priority.
Thank you. Commissioner Helm?
So since the first, well, I went through and watched the May 13th hearing in full, so I could kind of get a better understanding of this. And then I've spoken to some of you about this as well. Just one question of the timing of when the project N303 was requested to be moved from a Tier 3 to a Tier 2. Can you help me with that, please? My understanding was it was like at the 11th hour after a 2-year process?
It was very late. It was after staff formulated their recommendation, which is why that, staff does not oppose the change from 3 to 2, but that's why it's not included in staff's recommendation.
Okay. All right. All right. So that's where I struggle with this, and that's where I struggle with the vote on this, is honoring the team that put this staff recommendation together, and then for this to come in at the 11th hour is very concerning. I do agree that and I think that it was explained that moving it from a Tier 3 to a Tier 2, should this motion fail, and Commissioner West proposes the other one, that it would not move the needle so much when this project happens. Would this happen sooner? Does it knock anyone off?
It doesn't knock anyone off, so it would simply just change the tier of that one project. And there's not, as we discussed at the public hearing, there's not funding tied to any of these projects, so it wouldn't necessarily change when the project would happen. We'd still have to seek funding to get funding for the entire segment.
Right.
So that wouldn't change.
So it's not like it would happen in conjunction with the stuff that's happening right now, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I want to make perfectly clear. Okay. Helps me. But I also want to say, to Commissioner Savas's point, so much of the funding goes to particular areas in our county and is not distributed throughout the rural parts of our county and other areas that are in great need. I live in Damascus, and if anyone needs funding for transportation, roads, walk, bike, it's we keep knocking on the door for that too. So anyway, I appreciate your comments about spreading the love, right?
Yep. Thank you. Chair, I just wanted to make a comment, that is that, just want to make one correction, that and Commissioner Helm touched on it a little bit with staff's response, that the committee did not have a chance to discuss this change, right? This was not a committee recommendation for the change. This was something that was brought in afterwards, after the fact. So that said, and I'm not going to dismiss there's not needs on the west side, but if you look at the totality and the condition and the assets on the west side of the county versus the east side, there's a heck of a lot more need on the east side. So that spread the love kind of thing is, I think relevant here on this conversation, because if there's a change made, then I'm inclined to make a change, and we'll be here for the next month making changes. I promise you that. So Chair, I call for the question.
All right. So, Paul?
Commissioner Helm,
No.
Commissioner West,
No.
Commissioner Schrader,
No.
Commissioner Savas,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Boy, this is so fun. Yes, I'll go a no on it.
Motion fails 1-4, Mr. Chair.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion.
All right, Commissioner West.
I move that we approve file number ZDO 292, the Walk Bike Clackamas Plan with the following modifications. Change the priority of project N303 from Tier 3 to Tier 2.
All right.
Second.
All right. Commissioner West has made a motion to approve the file number ZDO 292, the White Bike Clackamas Plan as recommended by staff, and with the following modifications, changing the priority of project N303 from Tier 3 to Tier 2. Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
No.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. All right, council, do you need anything else from us based on the board at this time?
No, Chair.
All right, thank you. So if there's no further business, that concludes the land use hearing and our agenda for this morning. We'll return at 1:30.
Okay.
And we are now adjourned. Thank you. Well, welcome back, everyone, to this afternoon session on June 17, 2025. And Gary Schmidt, what do you have next for us?
Next is a policy session under the Housing Authority Board. If you would please convene as the Housing Authority Board, Chair.
All right, thank you. I'll now recess as the Board of County Commissioners, convene as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County Board of Commissioners. And now, Gary, please introduce that next item.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is Scattered Site Public Housing Repositioning Update. Presenting is staff from our Health, Housing, and Human Services Department, which includes our Housing Authority of Clackamas County staff. They are Mary Rumbaugh, the Director of Health, Housing, and Human Services, and Shannon Callahan, who's the Executive Director of the Housing Authority of Clackamas County, and our Division Director for Housing and Community Development. Housing Commissioner Ann Leinster is not able to join you, so she is not online, and Commissioner West will hopefully be here soon. Go ahead, please, Mary Ann Shannon.
Good afternoon, Chair and Commissioners. Gosh, it's been forever since I've been in front of you. Today, we are here to provide the Board with a progress update on the Housing Authority's repositioning plan. The Housing Authority is Oregon's first housing authority and has some of the oldest public housing in the state. Our public housing is close to 90 years old. As the federal government has transitioned away from its public housing model in favor of different affordable housing models, funding for our public housing has waned, leaving a backlog of unmet capital needs. In response, housing authorities across the country, including ours, are repositioning their public housing assets. This means transitioning away from the outdated public housing model and instead using more flexible and sustainable funding sources to support and develop affordable housing. Following years of planning, the board approved HAC's Public Housing Repositioning Plan during a policy session on March 9th, 2022, and affirmed their support of the updated repositioning plan on January 24th, 2024. The Housing Authority's repositioning plan approved by the board established some key goals. Ensuring new affordable housing by creating a pipeline of affordable housing development, leveraging or disposing of our assets to ensure that we had resources to sustain a pipeline of new affordable housing, addressing the long-term capital needs of our affordable housing portfolio, and structuring operations and managing our assets to ensure that the Housing Authority is financially stable. With the implementation of our public housing repositioning plan, we are well on our way to accomplishing these goals. Today, we will provide an update on the Hillside Park redevelopment in Milwaukee, plans for the Clackamas Heights redevelopment, and the sale of our scattered site portfolio. I'll hand the rest of the presentation over to Shannon.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So first, we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Hillside Park redevelopment. Hillside Park is a multi-phased, master-planned redevelopment on an underutilized public housing complex in Milwaukee's Ardenwall neighborhood. This redevelopment leverages a 16-acre site, replacing 100 units with 500 new affordable and energy-efficient homes. As well, we will replace an aging infrastructure, create a better connection with the surrounding neighborhood and street network, as well as creating an expanded outdoor recreation areas, community gardens, and gathering space for both Hillside residents and the community. In our first phase of development, 3 new buildings will be created. The first building to open will be the Housing Authority's Blossom and Community Apartments with 100 units opening this November. And then 2 properties by our development partner, Related Northwest, will subsequently open, Building B in February and Building C in April, which will bring a total of 275 units of affordable housing to Milwaukee by next spring. The second phase of the development planning is well underway. Once the first phase is complete, we expect our development partners to restage and begin construction on 2 additional affordable housing buildings to add another 160 affordable rental homes. We're also working with the Short Stack development team on a 15 to 20 unit affordable home ownership cottage cluster. And finally, we are working with our development partners, Related Northwest, and are in active conversations with the organization Bridge Meadows to create a 50-unit intergenerational affordable housing community. I'm now going to turn to the Park Place redevelopment plan. Later this year, we will begin construction on the new community at the current Clackamas Heights site in Oregon City. In September of this year, we will bring for your approval the financial closing materials to start construction on the new Park Place redevelopment. The left side of this slide shows the current configuration of the property, and the map on the right shows the new planned development. After an extensive community process that included 6 workshops with our resident advisory committee, surveys, 2 public open houses, and 3 meetings with the Park Place Neighborhood Association, our design team has created a wonderful new community plan that includes a connection with nature with a central green space, community garden, areas of play and sport, and a green loop for walking and biking, as well as a design that really truly complements the existing neighborhood homes. The Housing Authority is working with Bora Architecture and Truebrett Construction on the 200-unit cottage cluster development on the current site of the 99-unit Clackamas Heights. It is the largest cottage cluster development in Oregon, taking advantage of a new type of density that really fits well with the existing neighborhood, and which is largely single-family homes. I'm also proud to say that we received the largest LIFT award, state funding from Oregon Housing and Community Services this year of $36 million. And we'll be adding to that $17 million in Metro bond funds, as well as $36 million in low-income housing tax credit equity, and another $3.5 million in home funds. Altogether, we have a fully funded project, as I said, ready to break ground this fall. On this slide, you will see how the community will be laid out, again, noting the ample green space. I also wanted to talk to you a little bit about the relocation that is currently occurring with the Clackamas residents. All current residents of Clackamas Heights are in the process of relocating. The Housing Authority has contracted with an expert team in relocation, DDV Consulting, who are meeting with each of our residents individually, and as well as our housing staff are also working to support our residents through this time of transition. To date, 35 households have already vacated, and we have 4 who are in the process of moving this week and next. Our residents, in addition to getting a right to return to the property once we've redeveloped it, are receiving a tenant protection voucher to provide rent assistance to them wherever they choose to live in this community or any other community. And we are paying all moving costs through the Housing Authority. We've also been supporting our residents in advance of the move to help them prepare with support like rent well classes, expungement clinics, and even pet licensing and vaccinations. Also, we recognize the need that our residents will have after they relocate from this community, and we are dedicating resident services to support for up to 3 years to ensure our residents stay housed with eviction prevention services and connections to other services. I'll also note that the Housing Authority will, for the time being, be retaining its administrative offices at the Clackamas Heights site. And over the coming years, we will make longer-term plans for our operations. We will, however, be losing 2 of our service buildings in the process of the redevelopment, and we'll be relocating some of our staff, including actually to the 4th floor here. As well, to make up for the loss of a community room, we will be bringing a manufactured home to the property to add community space for us to continue to engage our residents with, and those we serve with orientation events, et cetera. And then the final part of your presentation today is regarding the scattered site public housing portfolio. Here you'll see a map of generally where our scattered sites are located throughout the county. As you know, the scattered site model of housing is no longer cost-effective for the Housing Authority to retain, and the board has approved the sale of all 145 units. HUD does require us to sell all the properties at fair market value. This board set specific goals for the scattered site sales, which are threefold: creating new affordable homeownership opportunities, generating new resources for development, and supporting recovery-oriented services like hospice and medical respite. At present, we anticipate approximately 81 homes will be sold as affordable homeownership, which exceeds our original plan of 25 of those homes. 60 of the homes will be sold on the private market, and at least 4 of the homes will go to community-based organizations to provide supportive recovery-oriented services like hospice and medical respite. Resident relocation at our scattered site portfolio is just beginning. Our residents do have the first opportunity to purchase a scattered site home if they can, and we actually do have an asset building program to help residents do that. They are also offered relocation assistance and tenant protection vouchers of the type I described with the Clackamas Heights relocation. To date, we have had 2 households that have lived on our scattered sites purchase homes, and a total of 7 of our residents portfolio-wide purchase homes and become homeowners. So far, we've sold 1 single-family home on the private market, and we are working with negotiating exclusive agreements with 4 homeownership partners: Dev Northwest, Habitat for Humanity, Proud Ground, and Short Stack Development. The HAC staff will bring these the Housing Authority staff will bring these proposals to this board for your consideration once all these agreements have been finalized. And finally, our Housing Authority team is working with the Housing and Community Development's Health and Housing Integration team to identify properties for medical respite and possibly hospice that we can pair SHS funding to support both the acquisition and at least initial pilot operations. Again, we'll bring this back to the board as we develop more details on the program. And before I conclude the presentation, I just wanted to express my deep gratitude to this board for your forward-thinking leadership and helping the Housing Authority move an extremely ambitious public housing repositioning plan. It's literally one of the most ambitious plans undertaken by a public housing authority, and your support and leadership has been instrumental. And I also wanted to thank our amazing Housing Authority team, both for the development plan, working so closely with our residents to make sure that they are safely and stably housed. And lastly, of course, to our residents, they're undergoing a great and tremendous inconvenience. They've been extremely patient and understanding and have provided really invaluable input for us as we recreate what the Housing Authority will look like for generations to come. So that officially concludes my presentation. We're happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Colleagues, questions? Commissioner Savas.
Just a comment, you said it, Shannon, I mean, what we're doing and the production and all the variety of assets we're building, it's just amazing. I just think about, we have a lot to be proud of, substantial investment. When I drive by the hillside, I mean, you got that huge structure, I mean, it's kind of exciting. I can't believe how fast that's going up, but to see that eventually all built out around the corner, that's gonna be great. But I just wanna kind of give kudos to yourselves and the staff. We're just doing some great work. It's stunning. I think we ought to just, not just on the Housing Authority, but just take a list of all the things we've done in the last 5 years, and give us all credit for all the good work we've done. I've never seen, as a commissioner being here for 15 years, I've never seen so much work being done, good work being done, and projects being completed than ever before. The last 5 years have been absolutely stunning. So kudos to you. Thank you.
And Commissioner Helm.
And people ask me why I wanted to be in this job. Well, there you go, right? No, you guys, this is an amazing project. I was not even aware of it till I was reading the materials the other day, and just, it's mind-blowing the number of units you're putting together. My question is, what is the process that the residents go through to purchase a home? Is it a standard loan? Is it county-based? I'm just curious what that process is.
So a few years ago, we started an asset building cohort as part of our flexibility that we have, new flexibility that we have with HUD. And residents have chosen to work on that project over many years. We help them match some of their savings and create the savings to be able to have down payment assistance. And so they do work on conventional loans, and they have bought homes in the private market as well. We've had, as I said, some of our residents actually are lining up to buy the scattered site homes. So the matching and the savings programs are through the Housing Authority, but the work to create homeowners is really done by the residents themselves. So it's wonderful to be able to move folks out of rental assistance into homeownership.
Thank you.
And Commissioner West.
So this is really great. And it's so well woven into like all the other things we're doing. We're talking about housing, recovery. How do these things all speak to each other? What are the batons being passed from one entity to another in a way that's so uniquely collaborative and that we all have been kind of yearning for within this region. And so it's so awesome to see us do it this way. I think, Mary, you saw my eyes pop up when we brought up Bridge Meadows. They're not a super well-known, they're not unknown, but they're not a super large known player. And they've been around for a little while. They got their start in North Portland in the Kenton neighborhood. And they are absolutely dialed in with their system of care matching up to ours. I mean, it's probably the same worldview in how we approach these issues. And we actually got involved in foster care as my husband and I because of Bridge Meadows and that generational work and community building they were doing. It is just effective, feel good, awesome organization. And so when we can go quickly through a large presentation, but I do want to call out their director, Dorinda, and the work she's been doing in community for a long time, and she's really well respected. And they basically help foster children that tend to not be easily adopted, get adopted by a family, then they live in community and housing together, and the community almost operates like, they bring seniors in for housing and they help tutor the children, and then there's services on board and the parents are helping each other out, and you're creating this very strong family community environment that supports some of the most at-risk children in our state. And you watch them actively heal in this environment in a way that's so profound. And you're seeing where once there was brokenness become wholeness again. And Bridge Meadows does this in such an innovative way, so cost effective. They're good at getting funding. They also have models in Chicago. But the first model was in North Portland, I want to say like 10, 15 years ago.
2007.
2007. Okay, yeah, 2007. And I remember when they were just starting to break ground in Oregon, and they were in a backyard party with the community, and they were having drawings and concepts and getting the community on board. It wasn't, very sophisticated, but it was very well done. And it was a lot of vision, and then they would have these galas, and they kind of grew it like a little seedling. And then, it's so cool now to see them incorporated in what we're doing, this many years later. It's a little personal for me, but that is a fantastic organization to bring on board. And so I'm super excited to see them be part of this. There's so many great things to point out here, and how things are just intentionally developed, and the drawings and the plans and the multiple commissions that were committed to this, and all the other electeds before the ones that sit on this board. This predates, myself and definitely Commissioner Helm, and I mean, it's so fantastic. So this is one of those great presentations we enjoy getting caught up on, and it's important. And I just want to say thank you. And yeah, this is fantastic. So I look forward to seeing more of this. I think this is when we want to address a housing crisis, this is how it's done, folks. So pay attention to Clackamas County.
Right. Any other comments? All right, colleagues. Well, this has been a presentation informational session only, so thank you both for presenting today. So I'll now adjourn as the Housing Authority of Clackamas County and reconvene as the Board of County Commissioners, and turn to Gary as to what's next.
Thank you, Commissioners. We are moving back to the issues list that you started earlier today, and we'll continue that list. We are on the item now, lottery dollars, membership dues requests. You had one section of lottery dollars before. This is the second section. Presenting again is our staff from Transportation and Development, Sarah Ekman, the Deputy Director of Transportation and Development, and Laura Edmonds, Economic Development Manager. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. Sarah Ekman, as Gary said. Good to see you all. And we're here today, so we do have a second installment of lottery dollar spending that we're seeking your review and approval of, and that's about $180,000 that is dedicated for dues and memberships, workforce development, and a final contribution to the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. So Laura has more details on each of those.
Good afternoon. Welcome. Thanks for having us back. Appreciate it. So each year, we propose this package of funding based on your indications of interest from the past, so we have three topics that we're going to bring back to you now for consideration. So the first is the Clackamas County membership dues to area chambers of commerce and business associations. These dues reflect an annual membership cost that vary based on each organization's renewal schedule and their established fee structure. So the memberships total $41,262. The second item is the final installment of a 3-year commitment of $40,000 annually to the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. These were previously approved in fiscal year 23-24, so this will be the last installment. And this was based on an IGA that the county entered into with the Willamette Falls Locks Authority. The third item is the $100,000 to continue funding a career and technical CTE scholarship program with CCC, Clackamas Community College. And this amount was initially approved last year, fiscal year 24-25, and we're asking for the same amount to fund the program again this year. This funding is state lottery dollars. No general funds are to be used. In your attachments, you'll see attachment A provides the detailed breakdown of the funding, and that's highlighted in yellow, just like the previous report had been. And attachment B provides the details and the success on the Clackamas Community College scholarships and the data provided there. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Colleagues, questions? All right, seeing none, may I have a motion?
I move we approve funding in the amount of $41,262 for membership dues, $100,000 for the workforce development grant, and $40,000 for the Willamette Falls Locks Authority final support payment.
Second.
All right. Commissioner Helm has moved to approve the funding in the amount of $41,262 for membership dues, $100,000 for the workforce development grant, and $40,000 for the Willamette Falls Locks Authority final support payment. Commissioner Savas has seconded that motion. Any further discussion? right, seeing none, clerk, would you please call the poll?
Commissioner West.
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader.
Aye.
Commissioner Helm.
Aye.
Commissioner Savas.
Aye.
Mr. Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you both
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
Gary, what is next?
Okay, next is funding for the Sheriff's Office Supplemental Budget Request Funding Proposal. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, will present. You're not approving a supplemental budget today, that's next week, but this is per the board motion from the Budget Committee to help talk about the packages of funding to bring forward to you next week. So I just want to be clear, you're not voting on the supplemental budget today, that's next week. This is rather, as the board, Budget Committee directed, how to put that package together so staff can do the staff report. I'm sorry I gave that Elizabeth and Cindy, but you can add on to what I just said. So presenting Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director, Cindy Becker,
Backup.
backup from County Administration. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioners and Chair Roberts. Elizabeth Comfort, Finance Director. From our Budget Committee meeting on the week of May 29th, we were asked to put together some funding mix options for you for the supplemental budget for the Sheriff's Office budget of $6.5 million. We have $1.2 million that we do know is going from general fund support to the Enhanced Law Enforcement District. But of the $5.3 million, we recommend that $1 million come from the levy. We've done some analysis on their ending fund balance for this current year with their current expenditures. And what we know today, we believe that they have $1.5 million available that we could utilize for general fund current expenditures. And so we would recommend having the mix of 4.3 and $1 million from, 4.3 million from general fund and 1 million from the levy dollars. And what we would, how that would be logistically is we would look at levy appropriate eligible expenditures.
Right, questions? I'm sorry, I got a couple on there. I don't know who went first. How about Paul?
Sure. I'm actually a little confused by this. So, again, part of my memory is the Budget Committee meeting where we talked about what that might look like. And there's not really options here. There's really, there's really one. You're giving us one recommendation here, not any alternatives. But I recall, and you got it listed there, the $9 million that we saw that would be in the budget line, not in the bank, but in the budget line to remainder that's in the levy fund, as we discussed couple, 3 weeks ago. So when it says revenue for July, October, which is next fiscal year, right? I'd have forgot what the total revenue line was for the levy. Was it 43 million?
No.
It was going off the top of my head. What was the total revenue line for the levy, annual?
30-something.
I think it's 36 million.
Okay,
I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head at this time.
okay. So 36 plus 9 is
45.
45 million. So I'm in that ballpark, right, by memory, again. But my point is that there's let's just say it's your $36 billion number. There's $36 million that's going to be part of the July through October revenue line, right? Divvied up by month. So 36, that's $3 million a month.
Commissioner,
Help me out,
Yeah,
understand
so we're
why.
looking at a cash flow basis. Remember, because the levy draws its money from the taxes which don't come till November. That's where the bulk comes. And so they're, for want of a better phrase, light in the first part of the fiscal year. And so we want to make sure that they had enough funds, cash flow, for that first quarter until the majority of the revenue comes in.
Yeah, okay, well, I kind of get that, but my understanding was that we weren't looking at when we looked at the budget, we were looking at the appropriated or the budgeted amount, right? That's not what's in the bank, right? So I'm not on the phone talking to the treasurer, say how much is in the bank of levy funds. So can you put that back up there? Well, never mind, I got it right here. So are we saying that there's only 1.5 million of revenue coming in
So-
from July to October? Or
So-
that's the remainder? Or it's 10.5, 1.5 plus 9?
So property tax revenue is collected every month, and the assessor would be a good resource for that. But we looked at what the typical first quarter of every fiscal year's property tax comes in, because some folks pay a little bit every month. And so we said, okay, new revenue in the new fiscal year is approximately 1.5 million. So we want to recognize that as new revenue, like what Cindy was saying. We're looking at cash flow, because we can't avoid the fact that as property taxes are collected in November, they still need cash to operate for the first
Got it,
3.5
yeah.
months. So we're looking at the carryover plus any new property taxes that come over against their expenses, against their cash needs.
So the 9 million, the 9 million that we talked about, or 7 million, whatever that number was, we were bantering
9
back and forth.
The end of the year
Right.
remaining balance, and that'll become the new beginning balance for 25-26.
Right, and that's the budgeted amount. That's not the cash in the bank amount.
That's actually our estimated cash. We were estimating with our analysis, that's how much cash would be left over.
If you remember correctly, there was a difference in projections with the sheriff's office and with finance, and so this is based on the projections that we at finance put together. So that this would, some people call it contingency, but this is the ending fund balance. And so that would come over. And so when we were putting together this recommendation, you're right, we didn't offer a lot of options, because there really are numerous options, you could do. I think we were trying to be responsive to the board, asking that we look for some kind of a mixture, for want of a better phrase, of funds. And I think you were pretty forthright about you want to see some of the levy dollars go to underwrite some of the shortfall for this year. So we wanted to be fiscally responsible and say, okay, we don't want to short the levy either, so we don't want to have one issue and then create another issue. So I think we took all of that into consideration when we came up with this proposal. It is a conservative proposal. We do believe will have more than $1 million, but we wanted to be very conservative and just say, okay, we do believe that it's not going to be a problem to take $1 million and apply that to levy eligible expenses for this year. There's no perfect formula. We felt this was reasonable.
Yeah, well, the comments I heard back when we had the budget, and whether it was Chair Roberts or whether it was Commissioner West talking about the fact that it was practice when Chair Roberts was a sheriff, that it would spend down the levy money first and then tap otherwise. So that's one piece of this, but every budget, there's some of those budgets, right, for example, let's just take the treasurer's office, right? They're not out of money, right? But if you look at their budget, you could say, okay, well, July 1, they don't have any money left over because they really expended all their money. So we've never really, as a budget, I presume that was not a reflection of money in the bank, and we don't describe it as money in the bank, right? It's just the budgeted amount and what you're projected to end. But assuming that the cash amount, the actual cash, right, the remainder of the tax revenue is greater than that. And there's plus reserves and there's contingencies, right? So those aren't reflected here. So all the departments would be broke on July 1st, really, if we actually had right down to the wire, and they would be broke until October, November. But that's not the case, because that's not how we budget, right? We don't budget on cash. So why is this reflected this way? I guess I'm a little puzzled. You're telling me that that's the actual amount of remaining of the levy fund. And then how much is remaining in Fund 100?
July 1st?
Yeah, if you use the same scenario, then Fund 100 is out of money too.
No, we have contingency and reserves and unappropriated ending fund balance out of Fund 100. That's, 80 million when you take all three of those together. So there's significant money in Fund 100. So I guess I'm not quite sure what the question or that you're trying to get answered is.
Well, I'm just trying to have a hard time reconcile that line. Revenue for July, October of 1.5 million as a revenue, and total revenue, again, those two added together is 10.5.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little bit, I've never we're talking about fiscal year 25, 26, and we're trying to close out 24, 25.
Right, so our analysis was trying to understand the cash flow through this year, and we don't want to deplete them at June 30, like you're saying. You don't want to end at a zero balance. So we estimated that they'll end this year with $9 million in cash. That will be their carryover balance. They projected,
9 million in expenses.
we projected in the budget actually for 25, 26, 7.3 million, 7.4 million, but we think actual cash is going to come in at 9. Property taxes collected for the first quarter of the fiscal year is going to be 1.5 million. So that's where we're getting those. We're trying to make sure they have sufficient cash for the new fiscal year, because we're looking at how much we can utilize of the levy dollars today for this current year. So we have to look forward so we can know what we need, what's available for this year. So that's what we're doing. We are looking at cash.
And they're projected to need $9 million, to have $9 million in expenses that first quarter. We need to make sure that we can cover that.
Yeah, I understand, but again, in regard to a supplemental budget, I'm focused on finishing out 24, 25, right? And you're talking numbers here that are 25, 26.
Right, because we need to make sure we allow enough dollars for the
But
next
that's what
fiscal
reserves
year.
and contingencies are all about, right?
But this is including the contingency for the levy fund. Yes, this includes all the remaining dollars. So any unspent revenue after expenditures, which includes contingency. So we are looking at all remaining cash dollars, potentially. Of course, we're using analysis, best and information that we have today to plan for the cash, how they're going to end this year, and then what they need for the beginning of the next fiscal year.
Okay, I'm going to try and sort this out. I yield back, Chair.
All right, Commissioner West.
I don't know if that complicates my question. So I'm left a little more confused than when I started now. But let me at least try to get to my question, and as I sort out whatever Commissioner's office just threw out there. When we look at the amount that you guys have for $1 million coming from levy funds, and traditionally, it has been spent first by previous sheriffs, and we have a difference of opinion and a struggle with the current sheriff on how those funds are utilized. Is this basically now a suggestion saying, hey, we think there's $1 million to safely use to mitigate some of these budget shortfalls or overspending of appropriations by using $1 million from levy funds, and we think it's applicable here? With that, do we have agreement from the sheriff's office to move forward in this capacity to meet the overspending of budgeted, appropriated budget?
I believe to answer your first part of your question, yes.
Okay. Okay.
The second question is, I did meet with Sheriff's Office staff this morning to share what we're doing, and they were sent this information, this packet last week after we sent it to the clerk. So they are aware of this. We don't have a handshake agreement, that they're supporting this, but they are aware that we're presenting this to you today.
We didn't seek approval, if that's your
Okay.
question.
Are you confident that what you're bringing before the board will have agreement to move forward?
We'll have a what?
Are you confident with your bringing before the board today will have agreement with the sheriff's office to move forward the allocation of the levy funds and Fund 100?
No, we're not confident.
The sheriff will not agree with this. She was clear about that during your budget committee meetings.
I guess for me, the goal of the budget committee was to right this ship and to stop this merry-go-round of back and forth. I know it's your goal too. If we approve this, why would we approve this moving forward to do it this way if we don't have agreement that it will be carried out?
Because you're the budget authority.
So this is simply to finish the current fiscal year. And they're giving you data for next year to help make their staff's decision on what to recommend to you of what to take from the levy. But you're only talking about the next 2 weeks to finish the year.
But we were just told that we could approve this today, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen, right? Am I understanding that correctly?
So we're presenting this because we want to add it to the supplemental budget, which we're preparing as we speak. That would be brought to you next week,
Okay.
next Thursday.
Okay. And then can you speak to me a little bit how you got to the, I mean, you spoke to maybe 1.5, we ask them for $1 million, we're being conservative. But how do you come around to saying, you're looking at individual expenses and saying, that's levy, that's not, that's levy? Are you guys, is that what you're doing to get to that $1 million? Or how do you get to the $1 million versus the Fund 100?
So we didn't, this exercise had nothing to do with Fund 100. It was purely to look at how much of the levy dollars did we feel was reasonable to cover some of the overage
Okay.
for this year.
Okay.
And so this is the form that was all about the levy cash flow. It was not about Fund 100.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I just have a couple questions, and I think maybe some things that can kind of help clarify some of the issues. I think that, because I've had the experience of running the sheriff's office budget, and particularly when it comes to the levy, right? And this is kind of for my colleagues, is literally on the budget is like, here is a position number, and here is a name, and here is a person signed to the levy. So it's very specific about it has to be used towards those things, right? And so as that money runs out, right, because it is a direct connected to a person, this is what I'm having concern about, you know? And so, so I'm really looking at over the next 2027, I believe, is when it ends, right? So the goal is to get there. And I'm not here to debate projections. I think both sides have different ideas on what the projections are, I think. But what I'm just concerned about is that we get to the end and that we're able to kind of keep those positions. So I think the conversation is not that this is what I believe, not that she's misspending the money, because it has to be directly tied to those employees, right? This is very specific. And so, so what I'm concerned about a little bit is kind of how did you come to the 1 million a little bit, and kind of trying to understand that a little more. And when you did your projections, you know, on doing that, did you kind of consider those positions filled or unfilled, and kind of what were the numbers? And that's what I'm trying to understand a little bit.
So we didn't consider whether the positions are filled or unfilled. They're all budgeted. The filled ones and unfilled are all budgeted, so it doesn't, to be honest, really matter. And, you know, I think the challenge is this. You have a position that's the exact same position that's funded, could be funded by the levy or could be funded by Fund 100, a jail deputy. Both of those funding sources, if you will, support a jail deputy. So there's nothing that says, okay, this jail deputy gets funded with the red color money, and this one gets funded with the blue color money or purple. It's a judgment call on the part of the administration of the sheriff's office. And so I think the major difference is that, as the chair said, when he was the sheriff, he went to the levy first. Sheriff Brandenburg feels that the levy should be additive to general fund and therefore would be secondary. So it's a very different way of looking at it. So what we're trying to say is how do we, and we also had in mind, we don't want to, a year after next, this levy still operates. We don't want to take all the money now and then not have the levy be able to operate. So we were looking at all these various things and just felt that, okay, let's just look at the cash flow, what we know now. We also know that the sheriff's office is in the process of moving positions between the levy and the general and the Fund 100. So it's a moving target, which is why we thought it was important to be conservative. I mean, we could have said the whole 1.5 million. We just wanted to be conservative and say, okay, let's, you know, to be safe, let's just do the $1 million. There's not a lot of scientific or mathematical theory behind that, just to say, you know, we think this is a reasonable number based on these numbers.
Yeah, and I think and the situation is different than when I was sheriff, and kind of talk about that a little bit, is whenever we would go out for the levy, what we would do is we'd do a projection of what the increases we thought would be over those 4 years, right? By the time that levy ended, right? And so we'd plan in the COLAs and the contracts and other things to kind of calculate that. And I think there was, from my perception, and I could be wrong, but from my perception, there's kind of been some things that have been added that were not thought out before the levy, and that's where I get the concern is the indirect cost, and some of those things almost came to 9.5 million. The CCPOA contract was about 18 million. That was a 5% increase. And that was, I know, higher than what was projected. I would have projected like a 3 or 4% increase, is what we would kind of be doing. So I think those things, and that the other issue to kind of make everybody aware of is that the public safety levy was to be in addition to. It was to step up to provide those extra services. And because at that one time, I'll just be honest, I had jail beds that were closed. We were trying to open them, and that was trying to get to that staffing level. So, so my concern, I guess, is, using those dollars, I think are okay. I just think we as a board, need to step up if we get towards the end of the levy is to kind of fill that void. I think that's probably the question at hand, or we'll, unfortunately, won't be able to fund those positions. So I guess that's part of my conversation. I know Commissioner West has a comment, but you were up first, Commissioner Helm.
So I'm just going to simplify this for my own, for my own sake here. What I read from this is after the budget process, you went back and crunched numbers. You said based on these conservative projections, there is sufficient funding to cover this, right?
Correct.
Question number one. Number two, I think we sent the message that departments can't overspend. You have a budget, work within it. And the way I think maybe you just described it is the general fund is like your main checking account and the levy is like a savings account at your home, right? So you have, the sheriff's been drawing from the checking account, and rather than using the savings account to supplement it, which is the levy, she's just been overspending the checking account. That's just how my little pea brain works, right? So the money was there, you found the money, and this budget is covered, but it's going forward that Chair Roberts is concerned about, that the levy's ending, but then don't you put the levy back on the ballot for renewal? You can't save the money till the very end. You don't save that till the very end. You should be spending it and then renewing the levy, correct? That's the way, again, I perceive this. So,
But I guess the question before us is, go ahead and spend those dollars. But if we run out before the end of the levy, I guess I would ask this board, where are we on that if they are short on the levy dollars only is what I'm talking about.
well, then you have to project for that. You have to plan for that. And that's what budgeting is all about, is you have to plan for the end of that happening and running out of money. That's what budgeting's all about, so.
Right, and I think that's why they were trying to keep some of those positions open to make it to the end. And I guess the other concept, maybe a different analogy might be able to look at it as, this is like, I consider it more like grant funding, right? Where grant funding is very specific. You can't take it and use it for any other thing. And for example, Columbia County got in trouble on one of their levies for using it for things that weren't really listed in the ballot language itself. So I know I was working with county council and finance constantly to make sure we were abiding by it, because it does come back on us. And so that is just kind of my concern, is go forward and use those dollars. But if the two projections, one is projecting, the sheriff is projecting, I'm going to run out, and I feel like our county finance feels like they'll make it to the end. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
Right. So I think that's the two differences we have here. So I'm not sure who's next. I think it might have been Commissioner West.
The voters paid for robust public safety services to be used from, correct, like they're purchasing public safety services. And have we ever seen the levy run short at the end to where the general fund has had to supplement significantly, or other funds have had to supplement the levy? Have we ever seen it like run short? No. Have we seen it previously spent down as intended by the voters?
I would say not.
we've never seen it totally spent down. We've always had this kind of carryover. Okay. And I think it's the position of this board is that that's a significant amount of money to go and supplement and to provide the resources the voters specifically voted for. Hasn't the levy always significantly passed with voter approval?
You would know more.
Yeah, it has a tremendous amount of public support to do it. And one thing.
And a lot to your work. I mean, you worked really
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
for that, and clearly.
And trying to build the trust that we were doing.
Yeah, and you did that. And now I think that trust also that was built was to spend it on what was necessary to relieve pressure from the general fund. And that's not happening. There's like a hoarding of the money and putting it aside, and it's putting undue pressure on the rest of the services to the point to where we've had an overspending of the allocated budget, which is quite alarming. And so there is a key to helping make this happen. It's appropriately budgeting, understanding how to spend that $9 million and doing accurate projections so we don't find ourselves in this situation. I thank you for this, and so I don't know if there's another comment, but whenever necessary, I'm ready to make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Savas, go ahead.
Yeah, so I know this came up under budget. My question, I never got an answer, and I think it was directed towards the sheriff. And I think I talk about what the cost of a loaded deputy are, all those loaded positions that are in the levy. So as I look at what's on the screen, it says operating expenditure of $29,474,000. I assume that's fully staffed, right? And yet the revenue projection, operating revenue is 25, or the taxes, the tax income is almost 25 million, 24.9 at the very top. So you have 24.9, 25 million, this is rounded up to 25 million, and yet you have 29 million operating expenditure. So why, one would say, let's just take the $2 million out for capital outlay for a moment, okay? That's a $3 million, the expenditures are $3 million annually over.
Budget.
Right, in the budget, okay? So obviously, we're not collecting enough actually to fill all those positions. Now, all that said, well, you're shaking your head, Cindy, so I want to understand. What I'm trying to do is what is the business model that says I'm collecting enough revenue to fulfill those 86 positions, right? To fulfill the levy annually. Am I collecting enough money, yes or no?
So if you look at this spreadsheet, you can see in 22-23, the personnel expenses were 9.79 million. The actuals in 23-24 were 13.3 million. And now there's a projection of 18 million. That's quite a leap. And so you're looking at whether or not there's enough money to fund the projections. And the projections are quite a bit different than the actuals.
The budget
So
taxes.
that's where we differed, from a budget perspective, that's where we differ. So we believe that, yes, there is enough money, based on history, and based on what we're seeing today in terms of vacancies, not based on projections, we believe there's enough money. Because we had a hard time going up to $18 million in just personnel in that short a time.
3-year period, it doubled.
Well, I'm assuming, I see that line, so I'm assuming that unfilled positions account for a lot of that, right?
They're all budgeted, whether they're filled or not.
Right.
That makes sense, yeah.
Well, I'm looking under actuals. That's under actuals. So the 9 million is an actual. It's not a budget, it is actual, right?
Correct.
Correct,
for
and that's where you see that's where you'll see your difference, because you'll see, here's the budget of, let's say it was 11 million for personnel, and they spent 9.7 million, so that's why you're getting your carryover.
Okay, maybe we're just not, we're talking past each other. We're not really understanding. So let's just take 22, 23. The very top line, taxes, 21 million, right? 21 million 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then operating expenditure, 18 million, all right? 3 million left over, right? Just in round numbers. That makes sense, right? You have adequate resources and your expenditures are $3 million under. Okay? Now, shift over to 24, 25, and you're backwards. You got 24 million, and yet you have 29 million in expenditures. Now you went the other way. You flipped 8 million the other way. So I'm just telling you, by the looks of that, you're underwater. Now, that's assuming all the positions are filled. There's still 16 vacancies we had a year ago, and a few weeks ago, we still had 16 vacancies. 16 vacancies times $200,000 roughly loaded position, that's 3.2 million. But yeah, just take those same numbers and go back to 22, 23, and you can see you're in the right place in 22, 23, but now we're underwater. So my question still is someone needs to tell me, fully loaded positions, fully exercising everything promised in the levy, are we collecting enough tax revenue? And I would say, hell no, there's not enough money there.
Well, Commissioner, if you see, even with that, and again, we don't agree with the 18 million. So the 18 million is an assumption that has never been realized. And I'm not making a judgment good or bad, it just is. But there's still $3 million contingency left over after all of that. So I don't understand, I guess, why you say they're underwater. So, I think that, and even the material.
No. I'm saying if you only look at the revenue line as a business model, forget the budget. You just look at the revenue line and you look at the expenditure line. If you really think that this expenditure is going to be 29 million and you're only collecting 24 annually, and those are your projections, that business model is put the budget aside, it's 5 million underwater.
And that's exactly where we disagree, because that is a budget, and they're projecting to spend 18 million on personnel. And if you look at the actuals, they spent 9.7, 13, and they're projecting 14.7 this year. We're not sure they're going to meet that 14.7 this year. So the gap between that 14 and the 18 is where we differ with the sheriff's office budgeting. And so that's, Commissioner Savas, you are spot on. That is our challenge each year when we're looking at projecting year end, because we look at trends. How we get to our projections is we look at how has the year been being spent every month, and we rely on accurate, timely accounting, the entries to be in there to help us then project to year end. And then we use that year end to say, well, how is it going to look next year? And that's how we do the budget. We cannot get to the same numbers that we see presented from the sheriff's office. Unfortunately, it's hard for me to say this because they're my friends, they're my partners, but this is the challenge that we're under. So you're right. So if you looked at this, you would say, this is a struggle looking at this kind of budgeting because you're going to be underwater in a heartbeat. But then if you look backwards, you're going to go, well, how are we going to get there? Is that a realistic budget to put in 18 million? What are you going to do to change your business practice to get to 18 million? That's the $18 million question. And I don't know the answer to that.
The question I would ask is, does that include vacancies again? Because I think that if your projection is we're going to have vacancies, right? Maybe you're projecting vacancies, maybe she's saying, no, we won't. And you come up with those different numbers. So when you're looking at that 18 million, are there any vacancies in there?
Mr. Chair, again, they're budgeted for 607 positions, and that's total. So 500 and something in the general fund. Whether they're filled or not, that's what they're budgeted for. So that number has to be the same. The question is, they're saying that they're going to be spending, $4 million more. If you look at the other numbers in M&S and capital outlay, there's not nearly that kind of a leap as there is for personnel. And so it's unclear to us, unless there's something that happened different, some grant or something that came up, you can't get from here to there. And so that's the struggle that we have. But so they're projecting they're going to fill everything, and it's not that it's not well intended, but it's just never happened.
Well, yeah, so anyhow, going back to my point, when I just take, I don't care how you look at it, when I take these numbers, it doesn't reconcile, right? And I understand your explanation. I'm not putting you on the spot, and you know that. My point is that, in a way, if that's what the sheriff's office is budgeting for the levy, they're painting themselves in a corner, because they're saying that they're going to need to raise the levy more because they can't make ends meet, or they didn't ask for enough to make ends meet, but yet they haven't spent it, and historically, they haven't filled the positions, and you have 16 vacant positions still, or I'm assuming, right? And they can't get there from here. You're not going to fill 16 vacancies in the next 2 weeks, right? So these numbers are, I understand they're budgeted, but practically speaking, that jumps out to me that from the business model, it's wrong. It doesn't make any sense. Your point about the actuals, they never did get there, they can't get there. And yet the numbers in the packet today is based on which?
So a couple of things. One is that this is the reason that you have heard from the sheriff's office that they feel that they're going to be underwater the last year of the levy because of their projections. And that's where we're different, because we say we don't think you'll be underwater because we don't believe these projections are based in reality. I guess that they're based in their good intentions. The only way that you get there is if you take some of the general funded positions and move them to be funded by the levy. The positions that are funded today, that you change their funding. That's how you get there.
Yeah, so anyhow, adding all that together, if I just take the 3.2 million of loaded deputies, 16 vacancies, that's 16 vacancies times 200,000 roughly, just rough numbers. That's $3 million that's not being used, okay, between now and the next 2 weeks. There's $3 million left over there. You got $7 million carryover, that's $10 million, right? And you've got some inflated numbers here that are totally unrealistic. So flipping back to the actuals, there's a hell of a lot of money there that's left over. And I'll repeat what I said during the Budget Committee meeting, that 1.2 million that we're backfilling the ELED, that was supposed to, in my mind, it was supposed to come from Fund 100. Because it always has been coming from Fund 100. All I want to do is just make it official.
Yeah.
Just recognize it as official, not suddenly go from our general fund to backfill, just to acknowledge what's been doing in practice.
Well, if that was the case, Commissioner, and that is true, because that when ELED was part of Fund 100, they did, and they even said it at the hearings, they did kind of backfill it, for want of a better phrase, with general funds. Now that the ELED is out of Fund 100, that money never went with them. That money that they were using to backfill stayed in Fund 100. So it didn't flow, as you had suggested.
Right. I just can't get there with what's in the packet. I just can't do it. I mean, there's just too much wrong here, and I don't, we're just, I mean, it doesn't feel, I don't have any solid numbers coming off of here or what's in the packet that says that 1.5 number is the right number, or 1 million is the right number from the levy. Mathematically, if you use those numbers and the cost, that number needs to be almost all from the levy. If you actually use those projections.
Well, just a quick response, and I'll turn to Gary here in a second, but I did want to kind of come back to your question, Paul, about do you need to ask more money for the levy? And I would say that's definitely, I don't believe there's enough to go to the end of the levy because of those unanticipated costs. Is it going to be close? And the only thing, and when I hear you kind of comment is the 600 employees, that's fully staffed. That's 18 million. That's what everybody filled, right? So if that is the case, with all the other escalating costs that we all have had, I will tell you that Oregon, I mean, the jail is one of the biggest water users in the city of Oregon City. The electricity bill, all of those kinds of things for all of us, just as they down at home, have gone up there. So I do believe there's been escalating costs beyond just what we're seeing before us. So I see Gary has got a comment on here. Gary?
Yes, the discussion about the levy is ongoing, and that you should have that with the sheriff. That's not the question today, although I know we're kind of putting you on the spot. We just need to know by today so we can write the staff report for next week. How much money do you want to use? The Budget Committee has already decided 6.5 million of one-time funds this current fiscal year. For the sheriff's portion of that, it's 5.3 million. So do you want all of that to be general fund or 1 million of that levy? That's the only question we're asking of you today. Use all general fund or 1 million of levy and 4.3 of general fund. That's all we need to know for you today, please.
Okay.
And next week you'll make the decision.
So to that point, the budget, when we talked, I thought what was thrown out there was we just estimated to be about half of that 6 million would come from the levy. I know that was just a guess, right? But this is quite the change, right? So I'm looking for the justification why it's not 3 or why it's this, based on that, and that's mythology that's on the screen, right?
Why don't we call a figure of half, sorry, Commissioner. So, yeah. So we just went from trying to be reasonable and getting this, if you want to change that, obviously it's up to you, but this is our initial recommendation.
Commissioner West had his light on. Go ahead.
Well, so here's the gimmick. We can make whatever fictional projections we want to make so that we can try to pad our little account and not spend it as voters intended. And so we can play this roundabout game the whole time. And it's quite a little ingenious gimmick that we've all been struggling with. And I'm ready to make this motion, but I absolutely can empathize in, I don't know, Commissioner's office, unless you have a different motion, but I don't know what those numbers are, like what really should be coming from the levy. Specifically, I don't. And I think that's been asked by a number of commissioners, like, how do we get to that 1 million? And I think you guys are just being conservative, so there's something coming from the levy. I don't know if that's the right number. And I do think we're once again, in fantasy land here with these wild projections in a way that we can project anything we want. I'd also like a blue pony with peppermint breath, but we don't always get what we want now, do we? But maybe we're buying one with these projections because I don't know how we get to $18 million. So and this, it's such a gimmick, right? But clearly these things are budgeted for. Clearly we have a trend to go off. Clearly that's the evidence that's based. I feel like I'm being gaslit every single time we talk about this. And I'm just tired of being gaslit over this. And I don't know what the right move is now. I don't know if this is the motion we should make, Commissioner Savas, or if we should have a better picture. Yeah, I mean, I'll yield back, but I don't know if we have a better picture about what we should be asking the levy dollars to supplement.
And let me get back to Gary, because my understanding is Gary is saying we need it today, right?
Staff is seeking guidance from you today, or I'll just make it all general fund and you can make the motion fail next week. We need an answer now. You're already behind schedule. Chair, you have a meeting. You have several more items on your agenda. We're running out of time, Commissioners.
I don't know if another commissioner has a comment.
Are you going to do a motion?
Or you can you could put more levy into this request, and then as the chair said, if it ends up the levy starts to run out of money next year, you'll fund it with general fund.
Administrator, that feels like Marco Polo a little bit.
Yeah.
At least there was some analysis by our staff.
Commissioner, staff did exactly what you asked us to do. And we're at the deadline for you to give us direction on what you'd like to see.
If I can make one.
Go ahead.
Cindy, don't.
So one of the things,
Says no.
oh, no,
Let
sorry.
the commissioners finish, please.
I'm sorry.
I'll make a motion because I don't have another option, but I'm very frustrated. So somebody's got to do something. So here we go. I move that for the 5.3 million of one-time supplemental budget support for the sheriff's office, Fund 100, that 4.3 million comes from the general fund and 1 million from the public safety levy fund balance to cover eligible Fund 100 expenses.
I'll second that for the sake of conversation.
All right, Commissioner West has moved that for the 5.3 million of one-time supplemental budget support for the Sheriff's Office Fund 100, that 4.3 million come from the general fund and 1 million from the public safety levy fund balance to cover the eligible Fund 100 expenses. Commissioner Schrader, second that motion. Further discussion? Clerk, call the poll, please.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Commissioner Savas,
No.
Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Commissioner West?
No.
Mr. Chair?
Pondering, aren't I? Aye.
Motion passes 3-2, Mr. Chair.
All right. With that, I have another engagement that was already scheduled, and this has ran quite long, so I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Commissioner Savas, to finish out the meeting.
This was the staff.
Okay, Gary, what's next?
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Savas. Next item is Board Strategic Planning Retreat Draft Agenda. There's a draft agenda in your packet for your Board Strategic Planning Retreat next week, Tuesday, June 24th, and Wednesday, June 25th. The primary focus of this retreat is to discuss and help you prepare for your strategic plan for the board. There is a little bit of some team building time on the end of day 2, but you could see the draft agenda. I'm seeking your input. If you have any questions, if you'd like to see any changes that I may offer to your facilitators before they finalize the final version. I've heard some feedback already from Commissioner Savas as we prepared for this meeting, that if you'd like to share with your colleagues, but otherwise, all feedback is welcome before we finalize this agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Yeah, colleagues, if you look at Wednesday at 2:45, it's got that hour and 15 minutes for team building. I would suggest that we make that 4 hours.
Or
Start
3 days.
Start at 1 o'clock. No. Not make the day longer, but start at 1 o'clock after the lunch break, and have about 3-4 hours for the team building.
And what would the team building entail? I'm sorry, I should have done this. What would the team building entail exactly in your?
Well, I think we have a brand-new commissioner, and we have our working agreement product that we were going to come up with, which we haven't had for review, and I think there's been, some observations and challenges that I think we could, work on a little bit, but, we're a brand-new team, and I think we need the time. I think an hour and 15 minutes is, unless you have a better idea, but I just think an hour and 15 minutes is way too short.
I don't think we get much done. I don't mind doing more time. I was just wondering what that might entail, so.
So I don't know who's first. Commissioner Schrader, was that?
I think that was her.
Okay, so
That's it.
Commissioner
That's me.
West.
Yeah, I don't know what the right time frame is, but I absolutely agree with you that there are significant issues in this area that the board should address, and be very candid about in this setting. And I'm just, Commissioner Savas, do you think there's some flexibility? Let's say we get done in 2 hours or 3 hours. This is a little bit of an unknown on how much time we're going to need. Can you talk a little bit about, like, how did you come up with 4 hours, or is there some flexibility, you think, within the schedule? If we use less or maybe a little more?
Yeah, if you look, for example, it's a roundabout way of me answering the question. If you look at the 1 o'clock to 2:30, it says continue developing measurable strategic goals and efforts. But if you also look at 2:45, the day before, that's really what we're doing. And it actually starts at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So really, there's really, I won't say 24 hours, but there's basically the whole day. If we go from 1 to 1 for that very function of developing strategic goals and results. So I just think that it shouldn't take a day and 3 hours.
Here's my concern. There's a lot of collaborative work, and that team building's at the end. And I think sometimes that team building that's uncomfortable needs to happen up front.
That was exactly my comment,
Right.
is that this should be, the team building should be the very first part of our both
Because it's
days.
hard to do this collaborative work
Yes.
and to really do the strategic priorities
Thank you.
until some elephants in the room are addressed.
And that's exactly the comment. It should not be at the end of our whole session. It should be at the very beginning of our first day there.
Okay.
And that should set the tone for getting work done.
All right, and I shared that as well, actually. So, Gary,
Your professional facilitators who are guiding this meeting did not recommend that, because that could hijack your entire retreat. If you start with the team building, that may be difficult. It will set a different tone for the strategic planning work you need to do. So the advice of your facilitators, who do this all the time, is start with the meat of the work, which is your strategic planning.
Just get
And then near
some
the
kind
end,
of-
you talk about the team building. I mean, you could do team building 2 full days, and then you've not done any strategic discussions. So that is a recommendation for you to consider.
Didn't we just also just do a ton of this work just like a couple months ago? I mean, what did, we just did a retreat. We literally just did one.
You did team building retreat, yes, 2 months ago. But you only had
I
4
wasn't
members
here.
present.
We only had 4 members, truly. I did,
and I'm not saying we bring in the same people. I don't know. I don't know how that would go. Let's just change a little bit. How much time do you want to have for the minimum time you think is adequate for team building?
as much as it takes.
Okay? Commissioner Helm?
Oh, man, I think it should be a really huge part of this. I think it will set us on a course for success if we do well with it.
It could, there could be a lot of feels, and that could also dictate how these other things are done.
Exactly, it could dictate that's what I'm worried is that it will dictate our development and our goals and strategies and stuff. So that, I don't know. To me,
Commissioner-
that's the first thing you do when you are bringing a new group of people together is team building.
Yeah. Commissioner Schrader, how much minimum time do you think, what it takes? Like Ben's response or minimum time you want to dedicate towards team building?
Trying to combine the two doesn't make sense then. If we need to do team building and it's going to take a while, then we should just do team building. That means that we won't be focused, however, with the facilitator at any kind of strategic direction, and we're kind of flying blind. So I'm torn between the two.
I think the amount, well,
What do you,
sorry.
I mean, we could do the team building from the get-go and then just hope that it doesn't go so far awry that we don't end up with a strategic plan. That's basically how I'm seeing it, if you want me to be blunt.
I think the amount of time allocated for team building is very telling.
Yeah, oh, totally.
And it's actually very discouraging that that little amount of time is devoted to that. So that's why I'm kind of
Yeah.
set on
Well-
getting it done first. If we spend our first 2-3 hours on our first day doing team building, I think we would,
Yeah, we might.
I don't know.
I am fine with that. That's the little, but I'm fine with that. I am absolutely fine with it.
Gary has a-
Gary,
So
hope your
Gary,
head isn't
you got
exploding
your
as
light
we.
on?
Thank you, Vice Chair. We have rescheduled your strategic planning retreat 3 times. We've already you have paid for this. The public has paid for this retreat. If you'd like to do team building, we should add on a second, either Monday, June 23rd. If you want to give up next Monday, we can add on an entire day.
I will not be here.
Okay, so that's not an option. Or we bring back the original team builders who have offered to come back when you have your 5th member and have them do a session with you. I love you all. It's been heck to schedule this
Okay,
because of
well,
your
all right,
travel.
then that-
So please focus on, yes, you could do some team building, but please make this your strategic planning retreat. I cannot reschedule with these folks again. They will refuse.
Okay.
So
we need-
we'll do
we
a
need-
separate team building retreat
So
as
we.
soon as possible.
Here's the thing is, I think some of us put a lot more weight in the importance of this than others. And I do think that the team building piece is essential for the functionality of this new board moving forward. So I'm not willing to not incorporate it in this time because some of us are willing to go along with this because the team building will happen, not because we find as much value, frankly, I don't, in a lot of this other stuff. I mean, that's just how I feel.
Well, why don't we just do what Paul first suggested? I know, and why don't we, well, let's give more time to team building, but maybe we should keep it at the end, even though that's more difficult, because at least we'll have a roadmap of some kind. Does
So
that
will
make
we?
sense?
Without team
Maybe
building.
not, but hope springs that miracles can happen.
I know,
Yes.
sure.
For the sake of what's been set up, maybe doing it at the end is a fair compromise,
Okay.
even though,
But making it longer for sure.
but making it longer.
Okay. All right, Gary.
So if just to round up what I hear, just to review, 4 hours from 1 o'clock on Wednesday to 5 o'clock, and at the end versus the front. My instincts were the same, to put it up front, but I was just trying to work with staff and the chair.
And I think staff's, because we've had so much, turbulence and
Yes.
turmoil.
Yes.
Okay, we've been dealing with that. And so I think your sense right now is, could we just have a plan and a roadmap? And then if we decide to, that's right, I'm hearing from you. Please, God, give us a roadmap
Yes.
here.
Please.
So we're just not floating, kind of through the life with no main focus.
Yes.
And then the team building is going to probably take longer than we'd like to think anyway, and we're just going to have to keep doing that at some point. I don't even know if we can do team building in one afternoon, really.
Well, if we need to carry it on, then we know what we need, but what if we get done early and then we have to pivot back to the strategic planning? But you'll get a good sense of where we're at in a couple hours.
With what, the team building first? or the-
No, we'll do it
the-
at the end because I think that's
Yeah.
what's being requested, just to be flexible.
Yeah.
All right, so I hear consensus for 4 hours, starting at 1 o'clock on Wednesday.
Okay.
Got it.
Thank you, Paul, for doing that.
Yeah. Okay, folks.
Other changes you'd like to see to this agenda?
Yeah.
What is the 10:45 to 11:15 presentation of stakeholders and input information? It has those, are we expecting presentations from these different entities, or is this their opportunity to do so if they'd like?
No, this will be a recap of all the interviews that have already been conducted by the two facilitators with these groups in the last several months.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Commissioners, for the feedback. We'll make those changes for your retreat next week. Next, a review of your board business meeting agenda for tomorrow, Wednesday, June 18th. It's one day earlier due to the Juneteenth holiday. So your business meeting is tomorrow, Wednesday, June 18th, starting at 10 a.m. This is Budget Adoption Day. You have 13 public hearings related to the budget. You have a 7-page consent agenda request item because this is near the end of your fiscal year. You will be meeting as all the governing bodies of Clackamas County. They're public hearings, so the members of the public will come and testify if they wish. We are adding 2 items to the agenda at your direction, which will add right to the start of the meeting. That's not yet on the agenda, but it will be shortly. First is the County Financial Assistance Grant for OHA that you discussed earlier today. We'll have a draft letter for you tomorrow. And adding county council recruitment. As you recall, you need to have a public review of the profile job description before you post it. That's required by Oregon statute. So we're going to add that quickly to your agenda tomorrow so we meet the timelines you talked about earlier. That is your agenda. If you have any questions on the budget or consent items, if you'd please let me know tonight so I can have them ready to be answered for you tomorrow for your business meeting. All right. Thank you.
Commissioner West.
So I do have questions. I'll talk to you offline. We've already talked about some of it.
Okay, great.
Regarding the CFAA letter, is it completed already? I know that Mary was right on it, but I would like to get a chance, if I need to, this afternoon or evening, speak to our stakeholders and make sure that it's tight and ready, because I know we have a quick turnaround time. If you could text us or let us know when it's ready, so we're not reading it on the dais. Sometimes it's a quick turnaround, so I'm just trying to be very aware of that present issue.
You already have it?
Oh, you
Andrew
do?
has a draft. You'll forward it to the board for you to look at.
All right.
Thank you.
And by stakeholders, you mean our colleagues at the association? Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay, last but not least, I think, is.
Two more. Next is a legislator transit work group letter for Commissioner Savas and then Commissioner Communications.
So colleagues, been in discussions with mayors, most of them, and Mayor Hodson's today reaching out to the rural mayors. All of the urban mayors have basically signed on to this draft letter, basically asking for a work group. In my conversations with many of these mayors, what they really find really appealing is the work group element, to have that dialogue at a state level. There is language in the bill that I was made aware of yesterday that is in a great improvement. So, I mean, much appreciation for that. But it looks as though that the way the language is written, there's a scenario, a likely scenario, or not a likely, but a possibility of a scenario in which that work group doesn't really materialize. It could really just be, frankly, the study, the work, and it could be a state, maybe a conversation if needed. I think the word "if" is in there, the current language. And if the current language actually survives to sine die, and the bill passes to sine die, then that's great. But I'm reluctant to modify the letter because everyone's agreed to it, and I would like to get this out. But I think a cover letter that says, we appreciate the efforts and the recent addition of language to that. We are hopeful that a work group can be part of this sooner than later, but somehow sharing appreciation for the fact that they did add the language, and then just get this on record. Unless you all have any other ideas, if you've had a chance to review the letter, but just want to let you know that all the urban mayors are volunteering their signature to this letter. Thoughts?
I think it's a great idea.
Okay.
Thank you. This has
Good.
been a chore, I know, and thank you for helping bring our partners together. When will this go out?
It'll go out today or tomorrow. It'll just be a matter of crafting.
Is it mayors or cities? Is it a city logo letter, or is it mayor's?
It's not going to be a logo letter. It'll be a signature letter. I'm waiting to hear back from Mayor Hodson. So as soon as we have that, I mean, we don't have to have that, but it's not urgent. But I think maybe it is somewhat, has some urgency. That if we want to see something in there that convenes a work group sooner than later, that would be great. I'm just kind of concerned that if the work group doesn't have a discussion, then the study may not be broad enough or might be not clear enough to address in there. There is some specificity that I think I have some comfort with. But again, I can't speak for all the mayors who said that what the theme I gathered was having a work group was a big deal for them, and they really felt they really wanted to air and discuss with the state or legislators. So that's one thing. If this doesn't survive, language doesn't survive, I think we can also always ask and kind of convene our own work group and ask our state legislators to be part of a work group, and not ask the state for permission, but maybe see if we can't get our state legislators or Clackamas County state legislators to join us in an ongoing conversation, whether that's monthly or whatever it takes to move the needle. But
I have a question for you.
Those are my thoughts. Go
I have a
ahead.
question for you, Commissioner's Office. So I know that in our lobbying efforts and being really, and have been working with our legislators, Clackamas County had requested the language, and maybe this letter is getting to that. I just want to close the loop, that for the state to convene a transit work group that includes local stakeholders, cities, to resolve and improve interagency partnerships. We talk about that here with the TriMet and service, and address the transit gaps and unmet need because we're in a transit desert. It's my understanding, and maybe I'm wrong, but Senator Wagner, Senate President Wagner, and Senator Starr have been amenable and have been sympathetic to this need. But we have had some pushback from Representative McLean. Do you know the overall feel and vibe of the legislature on our ask here as we push forward with this letter? And it seems like we kind of have a mixed bag.
Well, I would say that all the legislators that I've spoken to are supportive, expanding on beyond that, beyond Senator Starr and Senator Wagner. Senator Starr is not from Clackamas, but our Clackamas County legislators have been supportive of this. But I do know, obviously, at the tail end of the session, people are on edge. There's a lot of moving pieces. It's pretty complex. So I probably know that they're exhausted and worn out. And what element of their exhaustion or is around this letter, I doubt, because we're not asking for money. This is not a money ask, right? So to me, I won't say it's benign, but it's clear this is a big issue. but I'm hoping it is not what's putting everyone on the edge. I doubt if it's really some of the key other pressures from whether it's the money or this funding stream or that funding stream or the taxes or all of that. I think that's what's putting all the pressure on this. But that's why I want to put in words of appreciation in the letter to make sure that they know that we're appreciative of the work they've done so far.
I know we have some brand new legislator in 26 with Dr. Reiki Smith.
And I spoke to her yesterday about this.
And I'm just curious, I also sent her a text saying, hey, please pay attention to this. And she was quite responsive, and I appreciate that. Do you feel like that, I hope she's getting up to speed, and it's a lot to get up to speed right now on.
She is. I saw her yesterday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that conversation's supportive?
Oh, very.
Okay.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, good.
And I spoke with her late yesterday. She's supportive.
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
All right, so that's approval. We don't need a vote, do we?
And I would say time is of the essence because they're talking about wrapping up by Saturday.
Yep.
Wait, the whole session?
Yeah,
Yeah, they're trying to
Sunny
hurry,
die.
hurry.
Okay,
Yes,
so-
they're tired.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah.
they'll probably pull all-nighters now, too.
So Gary's asking for a motion to approve the letter.
I move to approve the letter.
Second,
Moved with the seconded.
State legislators.
Any other comments? Okay, clerk, take the poll, please.
Commissioner West,
Aye.
Commissioner Schrader,
aye.
Commissioner Helm,
Aye.
Mr. Vice Chair.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0, Mr. Vice Chair.
Great.
Who would you like to sign the letter? Chair on behalf of the board?
Sure.
Sure.
Okay,
It's fine.
great. Thank you. Final item today is Commissioner Communications.
Commissioner Schrader, you're first.
Well, let me just mention something that happened the other day. I was talking to Diana about this on the way up. We just lost a dear friend in Peter Watts. Yeah, he had a heart attack. Yeah, and, so I wanted to mention that. And so let's hope that we try and get to the, when there's a celebration of life. But I want to do a shout out to the coroner because I got, kept getting a call at 7 a.m. And of course, not being a morning person, I thought, well, who in their right mind is calling me at 7 a.m.? But anyway, I picked up the phone and it was Seth Crawford, who is a colleague from Eastern Oregon, who's a commissioner who is very close friends with Peter. And his significant other, the coroner's office is usually closed on Friday, but they take emergency calls. And so she was beside herself because she needed Peter's phone. She needed his materials, and they were fantastic. They were so responsive. They said, this is what we need to do. We need to get a hold of Peter's dad. We need to okay this, and then and then we can get them in here and we'll handle it. But I just want to give a shout out to them that they were more than responsive, and they really helped people out in a pretty shocking and sad situation. So that was my big, and then I got a lovely voicemail from his mom, Jody, too, because Peter was very close to Seth and to the Stahanchik family, Seth Crawford, but yeah. So
That's too
I'm
bad.
sorry. Yeah, he was quite young, too.
48.
48, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he'll be
in any
missed.
case, I'd hate to bring us down with this, but I did feel like I had to thank the coroner. They really did a great job, and they were very kind and very solicitous, knowing that when this happens to people, how hard it is to the folks that are left. So
Thank you. Thank you.
that's all I got right now. So.
Commissioner West?
Well, I am sorry to hear that, and I didn't know him, but I'm sorry for your loss. It sounds like you guys knew him well, and he was a great member of the community, so I'm glad that we were able to be responsive this weekend to those needs, and thank you for helping with that, Gary, and to the coroner's office. Thank you. Gosh, I have like a bhave SHS update, but I just don't know if now is the time to give it, and the chair's not here right now. And, I have a lot to report on. I think I'm going to wait. I know tomorrow's long. And then this is the life we live. So I'm going to hold off till tomorrow on that SHS update during my commissioner comments. We just finished our last meeting, and in some ways it doesn't feel like the end of it, the beginning of this that we're working through. And I appreciate everybody's quick response and effort. I know we all rallied really quick this weekend to try to get ahead of that CFAA issue. Commissioner Schrader, thanks for stepping in quickly and being on that call with the governor. And I know that's front of mind for us. It's a big priority that we're going to have to address on the county level. And I was really, I think there's a lot of good stuff happening in Clackamas. So I want to speak a little bit tomorrow to the realities of what the region is facing. But that's not necessarily the vibe here in Clackamas. And so I think we're in a great place as a county. And so that is something to make sure that we are championing and speaking to. But I also want to give you guys a sobering, I think, report tomorrow on where we are after this task force with Metro. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll give it tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner.
I read the article. I'm already
Such a
depressed.
great article. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, but there's like, yay, Clackamas, and there's
I
like, wait
know.
a second, this isn't actually great, like for the region.
I know, because
Yeah.
the vote there seriously affects our.
Yeah,
our
and I
county.
think we honestly have to start having a real conversation is what if this sunsets and we can't save it, the SHS? How do we support the system we built in Clackamas County? We must be looking to shore up what we've built here. And I think we have a lot to be proud of. I think we have a great story to tell the community. I think when they hear it, they feel proud of it, even though they're paying those taxes. And I know that we're a tax-adverse county, especially right now, but we need to start prepping for what could be the worst-case scenario is the voters say no to SHS, and largely in part because two large jurisdictions can't get out of their own way and govern appropriately. And we're all having this conversation because of Multnomah County and Portland. It's interesting because Gresham's in Multnomah County, and it has far superior outcomes and it's a good-sized city, and it's in the same county. They do govern differently. They do have a different way of doing business that kind of, I feel like, we could identify with and be akin to. Like, you're on the east side of the county, you get it. It's different, and they've been doing it well for a long time with not a lot, and so it's not always about money. But yeah, we're having this conversation because of persistent chronic failure to the north. And so, I don't know. I think that's when I give this update and then we move forward, we need to start having more robust conversations about engaging our community about what's next.
Well, I think the good news with that, if there's good news, is that this time at least we can fully involve the entire county.
Yeah, we can.
That is what the positive piece of this, at least
That's
have
been your
that
concern the whole
conversation
time.
from the get-go, because there's this artificial
Yes.
line, and our rural areas have as much need as the other ones, so.
I'm more than happy to help people replicate what we've done here, but I don't necessarily,
We'll just do it
yeah,
ourselves.
it's replicatable, but I don't like the idea. It is a regional issue, but if the region can't get it together, we can't stop the good work we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to say, number one, Peter was a dear friend of mine. I
yeah.
am so sad. I was shocked when I got the call Friday morning and again Friday afternoon from Mark Andrus. Peter did a lot of great stuff for Clackamas County, and not just for Clackamas County, but for all the small cities he worked in throughout the state. Tireless, perfectionist, a guru on land use. He just knew it all and had a heart of gold. So I'm shocked, I'm saddened, and yeah, it's kind of wild. But YOLO, right? That's it's you gotta live every day like it's your last, because you just never know. I was at the state legislature yesterday, just mostly for meet and greets. Went down with, met Trent Wilson, our lobbyist there, met our contracted lobbyists as well. Did get to meet with several people. I had my best conversation with Dr. Sue Reiki Smith. She is, like me, drinking from the fire hose, and she's just trying to kind of keep her head above water right now. So it's, but we can have some really good conversations this summer once the session is over, and I'm really looking forward to more conversations with our caucus. So anyway, that's it.
Yep, thank you. But I have no comment for today. I'm just trying to absorb what I
know,
just
sorry,
shared about Peter.
I'm sorry, I
so-
thought more people knew.
Yeah. Yeah, so we.
I thought I didn't know. I
Yeah.
would have told you before, had I?
That's a shock. 48 years old, and,
He was a good friend. I don't think I'd be such a good, I think he helped me be a better commissioner more than once, really.
Well, and interestingly, he was the enemy for a while when I was at the city of Damascus, and then he ended up being
Oh,
the
yeah.
one to help us with euthanizing the city. So yeah, spent a few times with him at the state capitol on that one too. But yeah,
I do remember his, I had seen that passion for land use, as far as, practice. I remember being in Salem with him often,
I was
and,
going to say, you went down
Way
with
back,
him
yeah,
to Salem
yeah.
more often than not.
yeah.
a lot of trips to Salem.
Well, Gary, I think that's it for today. Shall I
all.
adjourn?
That's all.
Anything else for the good of the order? We're adjourned.
He was